Will the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for Wednesday, September 21st, 2022, please come to order? This evening's meeting will be a hybrid planning and zoning meeting hosted in person at the Nathaniel B. Green Community Center, 32 Church Street, Guilford, Connecticut, Mononkatuk Room, second floor, as well as virtually by Zoom. During this meeting, our procedures will be as follows. 1, when you first enter the Zoom meeting, you'll be in a virtual waiting room until the meeting host admits you. 2, please be aware that your camera, if you have one, or your microphone will be muted by the meeting host when you enter the meeting. You can turn on your camera at any time so you can be seen by others when and if you choose to. In order to run an efficient and orderly meeting in this virtual environment, unless stated otherwise by the meeting chairman during the meeting host will keep everyone on other than the commission members muted. You will still be able to hear everything said by the commission members, even if you're muted and or your camera is not on. There will be opportunity for public comment during your public hearings, at which time public participants will be unmuted. 3, you want to grab that one?
Where is that one coming from now?
Chris Marchese.
Can I ask everyone to mute, please?
Thank you.
That might have done it.
Thank you. 3, the secretary will read the call of the meeting as published according to Governor Lamont's executive order. 4, during the public hearing, the applicant will be invited to present the application, explaining to the commission and others present what is being requested. The meeting host will share all related documents on the screen as needed. In addition, all applications and supporting materials for each application on the agenda are available through the public meeting calendar page of the town website, www.guilfordct.gov, and also through a direct link on the planning and zoning page. 5, comments of town agencies will be read for each application if there are any, and there will be clarifying questions from the commissioners. 6, there will then be an opportunity for clarifying questions from the audience. Please raise your hand through the Zoom platform and wait to be called on and unmuted. As this public hearing it must be recorded, it is necessary for speakers to identify themselves each time they speak by stating their name and address. 7, after all clarifying questions are exhausted, those who wish to speak in support of the application will be asked to come forward, state their name and address for the record, and make a statement. Then those who wish to speak in opposition to the application will be asked to come forward, state their name and address for the record, make their statement. 8, the applicant will then have an opportunity to address any questions or concerns raised by the public or commissioners. 9, once the public hearing is closed, the applicant is free to leave or remain for the balance of the public and regular meeting, during which the commission will try to reach a decision on each application. Each applicant will be notified in writing as to the decision of the commission and has a right to appeal to Superior Court if desired. 10, decisions of this meeting are available the day after the meeting by calling the Planning and Zoning Department at 203-453-8039 or by emailing planning.zoning@guilfordct.gov after 9 a.m. 11, all actions taken on applications tonight by the commission will be by roll call. All commissioners and staff will identify themselves for the record before speaking. Seated this evening are the following members who will please identify themselves. Kevin Clark.
Present.
Bill Freeman.
Present.
Bill Johnson.
Here.
Sean Cosgrove.
Here.
Frank DeAndrea.
Aye, here.
And I am Scott Edmonds and Larry Rizzolo. It's muted, but he's here. Larry will be seated today.
Great.
Staff president are Jamie Stein, town planner,
Evening.
and Lisa Piambino, planning and zoning administrative assistant. This meeting will be recorded via the Zoom platform and made available on the town website for viewing. The secretary will now read the legal notice.
Thank you, Scott. Notice is hereby given that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission will hold an in-person hybrid public hearing on September 21st, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. at the Nathaniel B. Green Community Center at 32 Church Street, Guilford, Connecticut. The Mononkatuk Room, second floor. You may also join this meeting via Zoom. The following applications will be heard. Alexander Ness and Ashley O'Connor, 270 Race Hill Road, map 109, lot 35A1, zone R8. Special permit for 1,200 square foot detached accessory apartment. Clifford and Lynn Gurnham, 3 Guilford Point Drive, map 24, lot 8-9, zone R3. Coastal site plan for demolition and rebuild of a single-family home. Copies of these applications are available for inspection in the Planning and Zoning Office and on the town's website, guilfordct.gov. At this hearing, persons may attend by either in person or via web connection and shall be heard. All written correspondence shall be submitted to zoning@guilfordct.gov prior to the meeting day. Documents are available at the Planning and Zoning Office, dial 203-453-8039 for assistance. Dated at Guilford, Connecticut, this 30th day of August 2022. Scott Edmund, Chairman.
Make a motion to open.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries. First order of business in the public hearing. Musa Akhtar, 72 Stepstone Hill Road, map 91, lot 4, zone 30-C4. Special permit for an after the fact 722 square foot accessory apartment.
Hi, Mirza Akhtar here.
Hi, Mr. Akhtar. This is the second public hearing for your item. I believe in the last one of the items that we were looking for was information from the health inspector about your septic.
Yes, I was at the town, and there was a small fee, an application needed to be filled out, which we did. And I believe health department, looking from the town records that, it was a 5-bedroom and that was an educate septic system. So I'm sure that, you should have some response from the health department.
Jamie, do we have a letter?
We do have a letter. I believe it was sent out and I can also pull it up.
Mr. Philip Johnson, if you wouldn't mind reading it when it comes up.
Or is this from Shirley Minkins?
Yes.
Planning and Zoning Commission from Shirley Minkins RS, September 15th, 2022, 72 Stepstone Hill Road, map 91, lot 30-C4. The health department can approve this application for a 1-bedroom accessory apartment. The applicant will need to submit a B100A application with the health department. Shirley Minkins RS.
And that application has been submitted, yes.
Great.
And I would suggest that we put those letters up on the screen so the attendees can see it.
Sorry, I could have screen shared that, but let's see.
No, that's not your responsibility.
I'm just trying to be helpful.
You always are.
I actually learned some things about this application after our last, which I think are somewhat pertinent, and that is, to the best of my knowledge, and Mr. Akhtar, correct me, this house had been abandoned for almost 10 years prior to him acquiring it, and that it wasn't he that actually did the accessory apartment construction. So this is all after, but it's not his doing. He's just trying to fix what was in place. So, am I correct in that statement?
Yes, that is, as a matter of fact, it has been, per, town records. It was built in 1986 and, it is as is. And as a matter of fact, the zoning chief officer, we walked through the whole property. We walked the, almost every room of it. And, the Suzanne was okay with it. And that's what he said that, we had to file this application. So that's what, we are before the zoning commission.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a lot better than sometimes when we've seen applications where the current owner went ahead and did it, and then comes back to us and asks for permit or begs forgiveness as opposed to ask permission.
No. This has been existing layout. I mean, everything has been existing. Yes.
That's what I understand. So
Correct.
thank you very much for bringing forth the application. I'm assuming,
Absolutely.
Jamie, that do they actually take out building permits so inspections can happen, or do they just go forward and do the inspections?
Yeah, I think that they will, when they go for a final CFO, and I think Mr. Akhtar can speak to this more than I can. but
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we do have some other inspections, like, the electrical, heating and air conditioning. The building department has been there 2 or 3 times, for the rough inspections and some other inspections. And of course, there will be a CO inspection, final inspections as well. So the building department, they still have to visit, yes.
And just one final question, maybe a final question. Who owns this bill? Who owns this house?
I do.
Okay. Under a corporate name?
Yeah, because we had funds in that company, and that's what we we allocated most of the funds from that. So that's why it was in the LLC name. Yeah,
I
but
think
it's a single member LLC. It's not
I think the thing that, the commission should weigh in on is that under our new zoning rewrite, and Jamie, correct me whenever I'm wrong, please correct me. There is not a requirement for the owner of the property to reside in either the primary or the accessory dwelling of the unit. So that obviously we haven't approved that yet. And I'm optimistic that we will, but
Right, that's the state statute that's coming through
Right.
here shortly, correct? It's approved per the state, but then each town has to deliberate.
Yes, we either
Just to
have
clarify,
opt-in or opt out.
just to
That's right.
clarify, who has the title? Who owns the title to the property?
it is in the LLC at this moment. Yes,
Right,
we tend to keep it that way.
right, it's a sole proprietorship,
Correct. It's a sole proprietorship, and just a single member.
correct. Any other questions from commissioners? Questions from the audience, either in person or on the Zoom call?
Would you like to ask a question?
No, it was be more under the next.
It'll be speaking, okay. No questions from the room.
Okay, would anyone like to speak in favor of this application?
No.
And would everyone like to speak in opposition to this application? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
My name is Helen Gosler and I'm at 88 Stepstone Hill Road. And we have concerns that my husband and I that really were voiced at the last meeting by the other 2 neighbors who live in the area, but we feel strongly that we need to support their opinions and we share them. Regarding the accessory apartment, the sketch of the apartment, it labeled a lounge area, which appears to include an area that could be a separate room and could be another bedroom. And this is a question about that. If that were the case, would the house exceed the number of bedrooms that are allowed with the current septic system? And the other is a question. I don't know if is only one way in and out sufficient. Is that to code or should there be a second egress? And in general about the dwelling, the top floor, which had some discussion about it at the last meeting. It's considered the top floor is considered part of the main dwelling. Yet again, there's only one way in and out, which is an outdoor staircase. So there's no indoor access to the area from the main dwelling. And our understanding is the top floor of that area previously contained a kitchen as well as a bedroom and bathroom, and the kitchen had been removed. But the top floor offers potential for a variety of uses, such as a bedroom suite or a studio or an apartment or a room to rent with its own separate private access. And the concern is this could easily be used for a longer short-term rental space. So as neighbors, we respect the fact that owners may do what they will with a dwelling, as long as it complies with the property's approved zoning regulations, which to our understanding is single family. And we just see opportunities with this, which I understand from the prior, one of the prior owners had actually configured things, but could potentially again become something that looks like a multi-family dwelling. Thank you.
Thanks. Just to address a couple of your questions. I know that Jamie has spoken, and maybe she can reiterate again, spoke with the building inspector about exterior versus interior stairs. And it was our understanding from the building inspector that there isn't effectively a difference for him. As far as one route access, that is correct. You only need one for a residential space. You only need one access door. For emergencies, the windows, as long as the windows are properly sized, which would be checked by the building department during inspection, those can be used as emergency egress. Did I cover? I think I covered those questions, correct, Jamie?
Yes, if I could just address your health department, which would be a question for the health department about the lounge area. Ms. Minkins, who wrote the letter, it is very a routine health department review to examine those types of spaces in homes or apartments. And if the entrance is greater than 5 feet, they do not consider that a bedroom. So the health department reviewed this with that in mind and determined it to be a 1-bedroom dwelling unit. And so that, we see all manner of studios, home offices, aromatherapy rooms with this type of space. And the health department has the ability to look and say, if the opening to the space is greater than 5 feet, then they don't consider it a bedroom.
Right, and per our zoning code, to jump on that, if a space does not have a kitchen, then it's not considered to be an accessory apartment based off of our zoning code. Saying all that, I think everyone on the commission has definitely heard what you've had to say, and whoever else is going to come up to discuss this, that, we understand that it's a strange design, but technically we haven't seen anything that changes based off of our zoning code. And also we've heard from testimony from the new owner of the intended use for these spaces. That being said, I hope that kind of answers all the questions that you brought up, at least during your statement. Appreciate your statement. Does anyone else want to come up and speak in opposition to this item? Or do you have something to say, sir? Yeah, Mr. Johnson.
So I was going to say that I don't think that we're really in a position to kind of regulate against any potential violations that someone might do. I mean, I think we have to go forward, with an assumption of, they're presenting us what their plan is. If in fact there are violations in the future, or something's being used in a capacity that's not as was presented, then it's, a zoning enforcement issue.
Correct.
And go from there. I mean, I do understand the concerns, but I think we have to give the benefit of the doubt to the applicant that they're doing what they're saying. They're saying what they're doing.
Right. Would anyone else like to come forward to speak in opposition to this application? All right, and looking online, I don't see anybody online. Commissioners, anything from you guys? Entertain a motion to close the public hearing on this item.
So moved.
Second.
We'll do a roll call vote. Kevin Clark,
Aye.
Bill Freeman,
Yes.
Philip Johnson,
Yes.
Sean Cosgrove,
Aye.
Frank DeAndrea,
Aye.
Larry Rizzolo,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. Thanks, Mr. Akhtar. We will vote on this item tonight.
Thank you so much. And
Next
thank
item on
all the
this,
commissioners, yeah.
next item on the schedule for the public hearing is Alexander Ness and Ashley O'Connor, 270 Race Hill Road, map 109, lot 35-A1, zone R8, special permit for a 1,200 square foot detached accessory apartment. Who will be presenting?
Mr. Ness, you are muted.
Dad, you're muted.
I say that to my dad all the time.
I'll be right back.
How's
Oh,
that?
there he is. There he's there.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Richard Ness. I'm an architect and a future resident of your town. My wife, Lisa Ness, is in the audience. Alex Ness and Ashley O'Connor are the owners of 270 Race Hill Road. And I also asked Chuck Mandel, our civil engineer, to attend tonight in case there's any engineering issues that come up. So what I'd like to do is have Jamie Stein run the slides, and I will do narration and I'll walk you through each of the slides. So if I could start with the civil engineering drawing.
Yes, Mr. Ness, just give me 1 minute to get there.
Is there any way that I can see your dashboard?
As soon as I get to it. So
Okay.
you're asking for the civil site plan?
Yes,
Okay. I am
that's a
pulling
good
that.
place to start. It's kind of the big picture of where the ADU is.
And here you are. I believe the audience can now see it.
Very good. We also just wanted to say that we're very pleased that the town of Guilford has such an forward-looking policy towards this type of use. We are in our 60s. We're going to live here, and it is a multi-generational compound now. The existing residence has a roadway coming up to it, and at the near the front door, it branches off to another road that goes down to the barn, and we are situating ourselves right off of that existing asphalt, so that we're not creating any new asphalt areas as much as possible. The process we've been through the inland wetlands folks. We've been to the health department. We've got approvals from the septic system, and we are before you today to get this special permit. Now I'd like to walk through the architectural drawings, and before I do that, this is the location of the proposed 2-bedroom ADU. The architectural drawings are going to show an enlarged site plan around the building. And then I'm going to take you through the 7 architectural drawings. And I think after that, I would just like to pause and see if there's any questions, because there's a lot of other information to go into, and I just don't know what's on your mind.
Okay. So if you're ready, Mr. Ness, I will take the civil site plan down and bring up your architectural presentation.
Yes.
I had a question about that first picture.
Mr. Chairman, there's a question in the audience. Would you like to entertain that now, or?
Yeah, we'll get to public questions in a minute. Thanks. Appreciate it. And we'll bring it up for you too when you want to ask that question. That's not a problem.
Okay, I am now sharing my screen on what I believe is the architectural set.
These are the ones that you uploaded about 5 hours ago. Yes, this is correct. The first drawing is what I call a concept drawing and a landscape drawing combined. The north arrow to the bottom right, you see that the building is generally oriented so that there's very little exposure to the north, and it's on the north-south axis. The sun angles are shown there, and the primary views out into the wetlands. And we believe that this is a very energy efficient way to go. A lot of the building has got, it's called Icing insulation, very, very super insulated building. It's got solar collection. It'll use air source heat pumps, high energy efficiency build windows. So we're really trying to make this as green a building as possible. I don't expect to need much electricity off the grid. It'll be pretty self-sufficient. Yes, let's go on to the first floor plan now, the next drawing. Or actually the foundation plan. It's 1,200 square feet. We wanted a 1,200 square foot building, and we had to kind of back into that in order to make the 270 Ratio Road a larger structure. So we are finishing out the basement of the main building to increase the square footage, and then you take 35% of that and you come up with 1,200 square feet. That's how we got there. And I've got all the math if anybody wants to see it. The garage to the right is not finished space. And let's go on to the next, which is the first floor plan. On the far right is the two-car garage. As you remember, it is entered off of that small asphalt parking lot. It's a completely accessible house. I have my issues. I expect to be in a wheelchair soon, and I want a 100% accessible home. My own situation is that every room here needs to be very easily in and out without a lot of barriers. So you see there's a 5-foot diameter circle all over the place. There is a mud entry that goes into a mechanical room. The kitchen, dining, living is a linear space that's all open. There are no barriers there. The 2 bedrooms are served by 2 bathrooms, one of which is 100% accessible. And there is a stair up to a unfinished attic for storage. Since it's a slab on grade, there is no basement. And gosh, people accumulate a whole bunch of things in their lifetime. So boxes have got to go somewhere. We're going to put them upstairs. And we can go to the next drawing, and that's the attic level plan. So everything on that top where it says attic area below 5 feet in height, that's not considered usable space at all by building code, or I should say habitable space. And the rest of it is a small area, and it does not have an egress window in it. So it doesn't meet the definition of habitable space by building code. It was designed exactly for that reason, that we just intend to use it as storage since we don't have a basement. To the far right, solar collection panels on the garage facing south. And on the lower portion where it says shallow pitched exterior covered porch, that is exactly what it is. It's an exterior porch, and there is no habitable square feet in there for conditioned space. It's a three season porch. And the next drawing, please, Jamie. The roof plan directly above the attic level plan, pretty much the same. I really like skylights. I have designed a lot of residences with them. Velux skylights are highly efficient and they let in a lot of light. And I'm using skylights extensively to keep the inside of this building fully lit with daylight. Next drawing, please. Now we're getting into the architectural elevations. The north elevation is the elevation facing that parking lot, and you can see that it has minimal exposure for heat loss. The entry elevation, the east elevation beneath it, this is the part of the house that faces the primary views. So it is what we would consider the front elevation if you were on a major thoroughfare. But we don't have any major thoroughfares. We just have each other in the backyard. So this is what we get to look at, and this is what Alex and Ashley gets to look at. It has what I consider a strong sense of entry in the center there, where the front door is, right underneath building section C, and a covered porch with myself waving over there, very happy. And it is a stucco exterior design. The 270 ratio road is a stucco exterior, and we want this to be part of the compound. So it's intended to match the finishes of the main house. The next drawing, please. This is the south elevation, and you can see that attic storage conditioned but unfinished. And the drawing beneath that is the west elevation. This faces the wetlands and the western property line. And I think that's about it. Oh, building sections, I forgot. The sun plays a lot of different angles in this house, and the primary living space is the living, dining, kitchen. If you recall, it was on a north-south axis, and those are all cathedral ceilings, and the skylights allow the sun to come deep into the space and brighten it up. On the building section B on the bottom is a section through that two-story space. And it shows how the north-south axis allows the southern sun to penetrate deep into the building. That, I think, is the last.
Great, thank you. We have one letter here from Kevin McGee, our environmental planner. I wonder if Mr. Bill Freeman could read that for us. I'll pop it up.
September 20th, 2022, to the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission from Kevin McGee, environmental planner. RE special permit Alexander Ness and Ashley O'Connor, 270 Race Hill Road, Guilford, Connecticut, 06437. Assessor map 109, lot 35-A1. The applicant is proposing to construct an approximately 1,200 square foot detached accessory apartment. Roof water will infiltrate into a 2-foot by 2-foot wide deep crushed stone trench located under the drip line of the roof. The plans for the project show sedimentation and erosion controls that are in compliance with 273-97B subsection 6 of the zoning regulations. Silt fence has been installed down gradient the construction area. Inland wetlands are located west, south, and east sides of the proposed accessory structure. The Guilford Inland Wetlands Commission on its June 8th, 2022 meeting approved a regulated activity for construction of an accessory dwelling unit within 100-foot jurisdictional review zone as shown on improvement location survey, proposed regulated activity plan, Race Hill, section B1 dated April 28th, 2022, last reviewed June 7th, 2022, prepared by Thomas A. Stevens, and site concept and landscape plan prepared by Richard Ness, architect, dated 6/7/2022 with conditions. In order to make sure the natural resources are protected, I recommend the following conditions of approval. Number 1, the town of Guilford zoning enforcement officer should be notified to inspect the sedimentation and erosion control measures.
Thank you.
Is that it? Okay, no number 2.
That's it. Mr. Nessie, Mr. Nessie,
Scott, can you just scroll down to see if there
I
was
did.
a number? You did?
yeah, sorry, I actually closed it already too. I
okay.
can bring it back up.
Thank you.
Were you asking me something, sir?
Yeah, I was wondering, are you fine with that stipulation from Kevin McGee?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I'll share it again. Here you go. And that's as far as it scrolls. It's a pretty standard stipulation from Kevin. Any questions from commissioners? Mr. Johnson?
Has the work on the primary residence to establish living space in the basement of the primary house been completed?
No. It's scheduled to start in December. And I had asked the planning and zoning folks to allow me to continue with the building permit process and even construction process and withhold my certificate of occupancy until that basement is completed. So I didn't want it to be a linear process where I had to stop and wait until the C of O of the basement was done. So we're running 2 projects simultaneously, and the basement should be done by the end of the year, well before I'll ever start building construction.
So having been part of this process, the general concept of the accessory, ADU was to be a quite subordinate structure to the main home. And it kind of feels like we're fitting this in by finishing a basement in order to allow for the relatively significant structure that would look like a second home, to most people's opinion on the property. I mean, I respect the fact that you probably know the rules and you're probably doing it all right. I'm just saying it out loud.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mr.
Jamie, could you explain to me the ways in which the square footage in the house, the main dwelling, affects the square footage of the ADU? Because my recollection was that you could build up to 1,200 square feet without all of that, but maybe it's changed or I misunderstood it.
Mr. Ness has had extensive communication with our acting zoning enforcement officer, Mr. Steve Maddock. I have some email exchanges from Steve with Richard regarding this exact issue. Steve interpret his interpretation as the zoning enforcement officer of zoning regulation section 273-219B, which pertains to the conditions for an accessory apartment, states after proposed modifications are complete, the accessory apartment has a minimum floor area of 400 square feet and a maximum of 1,200 square feet or 35% of the floor area. For the purposes of this section, floor area shall be measured as the interior finished spaces to be used for the 2 dwelling units. It was in consultation with Steve that the finishing of the basement to increase the floor area of the primary dwelling unit be done in tandem.
So the part that so you can't, I guess essentially you just can't, you can only build an accessory dwelling unit up to 1,200 square feet if your other square footage is, you're only 30, you can go up to 30% of that, up to 1,200. Is that what you're saying?
35%.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
All right.
So effectively 36 roughly 3,600 square foot house, basically. I mean, a little bit more, obviously, but math. Yeah, Philip, I had a similar thought to you, but then the other thing that kind of occurred to me is, well, typically folks are not trying to do all the bells and whistles when they're coming to this, when they're building an accessory dwelling. And obviously the applicant's demonstrated that he's very interested in solar and energy efficiency. He's put in, stone veneer columns when normally folks might just put in, a post. So maybe that's part of it, is that this is just an application where someone's really interested in what this second building is going to look like, as opposed to a lot of other applications that come through that, they're just trying to do the minimum. That was kind of what occurred to me.
Usually they're kind of a room above the garage look, but this is a little more.
Yeah, this is more like a dwelling and a dwelling, and just they're making it fit.
Yeah. As Jamie mentioned, I don't know. There isn't anything in our regulations that I've seen that specifically says it can't look like it. What it has to look like necessarily.
No, yeah.
It is strange. I agree with you. This is not standard from what we've normally see.
Yeah, Chuck Mandela, let me just interject here for a minute. Just
sure.
For orientation purposes, so this site is about 1,100 feet east of Route 77. And it's in a very rural area. Actually, it's very heavily vegetated to the east, south, and west. So we're about 280 feet to the west and 447 feet to the east. And to the north, there is a very heavy vegetated buffer. We're about 290 feet from the nearest structure. So it's very difficult to see this area. If you look at the GIS, you can get a sense. And when Mr. Ness first came to us, I instantly told him he was under the square footage. He needed the 1,200 square feet to allow for the handicap access to get into various areas. That's why the structure kind of grew, I think. And that's where the 1,200. So we did research this extensively in regards to zoning requirements and to get the 1,200. So originally, I think he could have had maybe an 800 square foot, maybe a 750 square foot structure. And that's where we came up with I think it was Mr. Ness who actually talked about the basement. I wasn't sure, it seemed a little unusual at the time, but he ran it through zoning and it was acceptable. So it's really not this backdoor type of thing. We're not trying to get away with anything. It completely conforms to zoning. We're under coverage. We have septic approval. We have wetlands approval. It's a very well-designed and thought-out plan, and it's in a very rural setting. So in regards to visibility, I don't think many people will even see this. And that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. Any other questions from commissioners? I know we have a question from the audience. if you want to come up and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Andrew Lukina. I live at 300 Race Hill Road. I guess you could say my property shares not necessarily a boundary, but kind of a four corners, if you will, with this proposed site. I believe I am to the west. Yeah, to the west. Anyhow, my main concern is there going to be a second well put in for this? Or
No,
is that a water line from the main house I'm seeing?
it will be the water line from the main house.
Okay,
Do you want me
and
to zoom in? Is that?
yeah, I've looked at it on
Oh,
my
okay.
computer pretty extensively. My other question, the brush that Chuck spoke of, it does separate a blue house with a swimming pool from this house. And they would be the ones who would probably be most affected, I'd say. As long as all that brush never gets touched, I would guess I would agree with Chuck, you wouldn't be able to see it, but there's a number of streams in these wetlands that kind of run along the boundaries. And, my concern would just be a lot more runoff going into them. They're already kind of overtaxed at times. The whole area of Joseph Drive is actually really wet, and we take a lot of water from those ditches. Especially if you go across Joseph Drive, there's some really, really poorly maintained culverts that the town should be, removing sand from in front of the pipes, because it causes the basins to sit full of water all summer long because the ditches are just so poorly maintained. So, my main concern was the well. I'm glad to hear you're not drilling a second one, because I know that could affect everyone else's with the hammering. I guess as long as these brush boundaries that I'm seeing on the map are going to be left, that solid, what does it say? That green line is 30 feet.
Yes, that green line is the edge of the brush, yes.
And so it's 30 feet to my woods in that open field has to say brush.
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
if
you
I
want
can
to speak to that,
express-
Chuck?
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you notice on the plan, if you can zoom in on that one corner, Jamie, where it shows that brush line.
Yep. One second.
So, yep, there you go, just on the west side there. So yes, that's correct. That green squiggly line, that's the existing brush line, and that's about 30 feet to the property line, actually. We did have, if you look at that red, it says 50 IWR. So that's a 50 foot, that's a 50 foot from the wetlands, which is almost concurrently with the boundary line.
Right.
So we would not be able to touch anything outside. Well, actually, you see that silt fence, which is a black dashed line, heavy dashed line. So there's going to be no activity beyond that silt fence. In regards to, well, Joseph Drive I've driven down there. It's terrible. I mean, maybe the town town public works to take a look at that someday, if there's any money in the budget to fix that drainage. But what we're proposing is we are capturing, we have the stormwater calculations on this plan. We will be capturing the first inch of rainwater. And in addition to clean it, actually, it's the first flush. And we also have, it will stay vegetated. So it's relatively flat in that one area. And we don't see there. And there'll be about 50 feet of overland flow prior to any water getting to that wetland boundary. So we won't be creating any more flooding in there. The rain is going to be the rain. We're just capturing it before it immediately comes off into the wetlands. But then again, we do have a 50 foot of overland flow there. So,
thanks, Chuck. Two things that I would like to know too, just to help out with thanks for the great questions. The first I want to note is that anything that's within that 50 feet of the inland wetlands that's in that dotted red line there, inland wetlands will have a problem if you try to clear any of that out. So if anyone wanted to clear that brush, they would actually have to go to inlet wetlands for a permit to do so. And as you may or may not know, inlet wetlands is very particular about such things. So I would really ease your concerns when it comes to that brush for sure. If anybody wanted to touch it, they would have to inform all their neighbors first and go to inlet wetlands. The second,
Also,
yeah, Mr. Ness.
could I also please add something is, I love that brush.
Yeah.
Believe me, I have no interest in that buffer being disappeared. It is very, very good screening effect between ourselves and the neighbor, the entire neighborhood on the other side of it.
Great, thank you. The second one is just related to, like Chuck mentioned, the drainage issue you're mentioning. Please, by all means, bring that up to the town public works. Just make sure they're aware, and hopefully they'll get you on a list for when they can next take care of that for you.
Sure. Well, I think my main two concerns were addressed right there. I mean,
yeah,
I can see the existing barn off my deck, but you know, that's been there forever. As long as we're not touching anything in the woods or the brush, it's really shouldn't affect me.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jamie, do you have any other questions from the audience? I'm going to scroll through the
No, we do not.
call here. Let's see other questions. Would anyone like to speak in support of this application? Not seeing anyone on the call. Would anyone like to speak in opposition to this application? All right. Any last questions from commissioners on this item? Should we have a quick discussion of this? Is, as everyone should be aware, this is a special permit, which means that it requires 2 public hearings, unless we as a commission decide that it has checked all the boxes and is an application that doesn't seem to have much opposition, that we can vote by 3/4 vote to waive the second public hearing. What are our commissioners feeling on that waiver for this item?
I'm in favor.
Yep, I'm fine with it. Can I just,
I'm good with it.
this is a little more unusual from the standpoint that, you know, we're adding square footage to the primary structure in order to make this, the accessory, the ADU compliant. That's kind of a new one.
Yeah, again, it conforms. I guess, yeah, it's just
new. It's different. It's different than any ADU that I've seen. Frank, you've been on longer than I have.
Yeah, you're right. It is a first that I've seen.
I guess I would just say, Jamie, as far as not related to this application, but perhaps we can talk about that topic when we're discussing the ADU decision that we're going to have to come up with here shortly as well. We can just talk about it then, see where, but.
Yeah, and how some people want to build smaller than 400 square feet, so we can have
Right.
that conversation too.
That's true. That'd be a great time to talk about that as well.
Larry Rislow, I would say it's very creative.
Yeah.
It's definitely fitting the square box into the round hole. I mean,
Exactly.
All right, so I entertain would anyone like to propose a motion related to waiving the second public hearing?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
A second,
Thank you, Larry. We'll roll call vote. Kevin Clark,
Yes.
Bill Freeman,
Yes.
Philip Johnson,
no.
Sean Cosgrove,
Yes.
Frank DeAndrea,
Yes.
Larry Zolo,
yes.
and I vote yes. Motion carries. Do I hear a motion to close the public hearing on this item?
So moved.
Do I hear a
Second.
Kevin Clark,
Yes.
Bill Freeman,
Yes.
Philip Johnson,
Yes.
Sean Cosgrove,
Aye.
Frank DeAndrea,
Aye.
Larry Rizzolo,
Yes.
and I will also vote yes. We'll act on this evening. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, Clifford and Lynn Gurnham, 3 Guilford Point Drive, map 24, lot 8-9, zone R3, coastal site plan for demolition and rebuild of a single family home.
Cliff, you're muted.
Cliff, you're muted.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. We also have Jeff Biggie that's going to kind of lead us through what we're looking to do. I believe he's also on here.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi. So this is an application for the demolition of the Gurnham home at down at Guilford Point, 3 Guilford Point, and the construction of a new home that's actually going to be, in most aspects, more compliant with the zoning regulations than the house they're taking down. We did need to get a variance with regard to the garage that they're proposing to build on the house. That was granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals at last month's hearing, and so we believe that that the application from a planning and zoning perspective with the variance complies with the zoning regulations. We're making it more compliant with regard to setbacks from the side yards. And we're really here before you because it's within the coastal area management zone. It's down on Guilford Point, as I mentioned earlier. And the house, you may be able to see it on the map that Mike Ott had prepared. And I don't know if Jamie, if you might be able to call that up.
Let's do.
Thank you very much. So the existing house you can see is kind of in the center of this largely triangular shaped lot. And if you go down to the, I guess it'd be the southwest corner, that's where the property comes up against the waters of Long Island Sound. So the house is set back a fair distance from the sound. And in fact, directly, if you go directly south, there's another house between it and Long Island Sound. And so for CAM purposes, we believe we're actually bringing the house a little further away from the sound. And the only area where it's increasing in size is at the, I guess it'd be the northwest corner of the house. And that's the area where we received the variance, which we're building out towards the neighboring parcel to the northwest. We think we've, in connection with the variance application, we received letters of support from the neighbors. We haven't received any letters in opposition that we're aware of with regard to the plan. And we think that it's in an existing developed residential area. We're proposing a new residence on the site. We're making it more compliant, and we're not going to do anything that brings it closer to the coastal resources. So for those reasons, we would request that the commission approve the CAM site plan application. And we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
So this is Bill Freeman. Is this the plan they're showing the existing structure?
But no, that's the plan that shows the existing structure, correct? The plan that Mike Ott prepared will show the proposed structure.
Okay.
So in the existing structure, you can see the sunroom just where the cursor was. Oh, that's okay.
Sorry, Jeff. I was gonna get the other one.
Yeah, sun just overline as well as the corner.
Yeah, so the sunroom was bumping over in the corner of the garage, basically.
The corner of the garage was already bumping over. It's moving a little closer to the neighboring parcel to the northwest. But if you look towards the east side, there's you can see the 29.5 measurement that is being brought in closer to the house under the new proposal. The sunroom is, you can see down at the bottom, is 15.5 feet from the setback. That will be, I believe, 20. Let's see, I think it's going to be 26 feet from the setback. And then the wood deck, you can see it's 22.3 to the boundary. We're bringing that back to about 26 feet from the side. So we're moving the new structure will be further away from the coastal resources than the existing structure. And if we could call up the new plan that Mr. Ott had prepared, you can see it in better detail.
Hey, Jeff, I'm just curious. This is Sean. Sorry about the video. Will the house be further elevated?
No, it's not in the flood zone, so we don't need to raise the height.
That surprises me.
I actually just looked it up on the FEMA map and I was surprised too, but that is the case. Can I ask Jeff, and it's obviously after the fact now, what was the hardship that was presented with respect to the side lot decrease?
Sure. A couple things. The house was originally built in the 1800s and was renovated in the late 80s. So it was existing prior to the adoption of the zoning regulations, and then the lots were created as part of a planned residential development originally approved in the mid 1970s, later revised. And you can see from the configuration of the lot that where the house is located, the shape of the lot is largely triangular. And so the hardship was that they really couldn't do anything. They couldn't, they were already up against the setback lines where they were. And to configure the house the way they wanted, they needed a little bit of extra space towards the northwest corner. We were looking for about a 4.3 foot variance and it was already extending over that setback. So we were looking to go out another couple feet with regard
to. Jeff, don't you think it would be prudent to elevate that house somewhat?
I'll let Mr. Burnham answer that. I don't know if he's had any impact from the rising waters of Long Island Sound during any of our storm events over the years.
Yeah, as far as I understand, we've not had to deal with any water issues. We've talked to prior owners. There's no water in the existing basement, which is over a 6-foot existing basement in parts of it. So we don't anticipate having an issue or having a reason to raise it up for any real reason. And we talked to obviously Mike Ott as well as the proposed contractor that's looking to do the construction, and neither one have recommended or you made the requirement or like I said, recommendation to actually raise the house up at all.
I wish you luck.
Thank you.
We have a from Kevin McGee, unless Jamie, you've got the plan.
I do. I was gonna pull up the survey again, but I think what we'll do now is pull up what I believe to be the map that Jeff was referring to. Just a minute. Just looking accurate?
Yes.
Okay, let me just kind of zoom in a little. Oh, maybe too much, but you know. So the orientation is a bit different, but you can actually see, I believe the way Mike did this is there's sort of the grayed out area is the existing and then the darker is the proposed. Am I right there?
That's correct. And so you can see the porch is set further back and the house is set further back along the southerly side. And then it's a little further in on the easterly side. And then the garage is the only area where it's a little bit closer to the neighboring parcel than what's there currently. And that's the area that we got the variance for.
And Jeff, just to clarify, I actually think it's the same distance. We did not increase or you know, that variance. It's exactly the same distance, 25, whatever, 0.7. We had to get the variance because the height, the house is 2.5 feet higher at that corner. Not that it's further over the setback lines. It's just strictly a little bit higher.
That's accurate. I apologize. It's increasing the nonconformity by going up a little bit higher.
But you've decreased it in several other areas, if I'm
Correct.
reading this.
Correct. We brought it into greater compliance in other areas.
And so all roof water is being sent to this infiltration system?
Correct.
We have a letter from Kevin McGee, environmental planner. Let's go with Mr. Frank DeAndrea. Would you please read this as I pop it up?
Yes, sir. This is dated September 20th, 2022 to Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission from Kevin McGee, our environmental planner. Coastal Area Management Review for Clifford and Lynn Gurnham at 3, did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay, 3 Guilford Point Drive, Guilford, Connecticut. Assessors map 24, lot 8 and 9. The applicant is proposing to tear down and rebuild a 4-bedroom residence at approximately the same location. Stormwater from the roof is being treated in the subsurface infiltration chambers. The proposed construction is located outside of the flood zone. The coastal resource policies are applicable for the property or coastal hazard area, coastal waters, shorelands, and rocky shorefront. The site plan provides for erosion and sedimentation control measures that are designed to protect the adjacent coastal resources. The work being conducted could have an impact on the adjacent coastal resources if the erosion and sedimentation control measures are not properly installed and maintained. In order to make sure that the coastal resources are protected, I recommend the following conditions of approval. 1, the Town of Guilford zoning enforcement officer should be notified to inspect the sedimentation and erosion control measures. Prior to site construction, soil stockpiles should be contained by silt fencing and/or hay bales. Soil erosion and sedimentation control measures shall be maintained until vegetation is established or suitable materials is installed to the satisfaction of zoning enforcement officer. 2, the Town of Guilford zoning enforcement officer should be notified to inspect the roof water infiltration system, and an as-built plan showing the infiltrator's location should be submitted to the zoning enforcement officer prior to the issuance of a certificate of zoning compliance. 3, the site should be inspected daily to make sure that all construction debris has been properly disposed of in a covered dumpster.
Very much. Attorney Beatty, are you good with those stipulations?
I think so. Yes.
Thank you.
You think so, or you are?
We are.
We are. Yeah.
Any
Technically,
other questions? Yes, Mr. Law.
technically, shouldn't the compliance include tearing down the existing structure, not just construction of the new structure? If we gave a literal interpretation.
Are you speaking in terms of Kevin's stipulations? Or
Yeah, he says all the controls should be for construction, but not for tearing the.
I think that's a very good point and very relevant for debris and silt control, and if there's a storm during the demolition.
Sure. I mean, you can interpret construction as being generally anything being done to the item, but we can adjust those stipulations to mention also during demolition.
I think that would be.
I think we'd be fine with, we're fine with that also.
Great. Any other questions from commissioners? All right, at this time, open up for questions from the public. Anyone with a question? Is there anyone that would like to speak in support of this application? And is there anyone that could speak in opposition to this application? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to end the public hearing on this item.
So moved.
Thank you. Kevin Clark,
Yes.
Bill Freeman,
Yes.
Philip Johnson. He's muted at the moment, probably eating. So that's an abstain. Sean Cosgrove.
Aye.
Frank DeAndrea.
Aye.
Larry Rizzolo.
Yes.
And I will also vote yes. Motion carries. We'll deliberate on this evening with or without Mr. Philip Johnson.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda, for public hearing is Jake's Cherry Street LLC, 397 Church Street, map 74, lot 3, zone I1, site plan and special permit for a dental/medical office.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would like to make a request in full knowledge that I may be bunking some rules here of procedure. However, we are joined in the audience by the applicant for the 4 catalyzer application.
Okay,
Which is a site plan.
that we're gonna review today.
That we are reviewing today.
Yeah.
With the interest of, hearing them sooner rather than later. Perhaps the commission could consider.
Sure.
Your application.
Would the commissioner want to motion that we adjust the agenda to move 4 catalyzer ahead of Jake's Cherry Street?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. 4 catalyzer, 351 Whitfield Street, map 28, lot 12, zone I-12, site plan for a location of 2 trailers for research testing, requesting 2-year extension of existing permit.
Would you like to come up and present your application?
Hello, my name is Kirsty Wool, and I work with the clinical team at Detect Inc. So when Detect was first granted a permit for use of trailers on the property 351 New Whitfield, the intention was for it to be used as supplemental housing for employees during our floor plan reconstruction to create adequate distance and workspace around COVID-19 parameters. It quickly became clear that our clinical team and ongoing clinical study made far better use of the space as a testing center where we could have participants safely and quickly move through the trailer and donate swabs in exchange for peace of mind that they were not infected by COVID-19. Detect Inc. has been conducting a clinical study at 351 New Whitfield Street since September 2020 in order to build a molecular at-home COVID-19 test. The design of this study was to have up to 9,000 unique participants donate up to 4 swabs of nasal material on site to be tested in our lab to use to test the efficacy of our product. This testing location and the volunteers throughout Guilford have been critical support for our emergency use authorization that was given by the FDA in October of 2021. During this time, Detect Inc. has tested over 5,000 unique subjects using the CDC COVID-19 assay and collected more than 20,000 samples. Each participant's test was free to them, making our testing procedure mutually beneficial. As you know, the pandemic has been cyclical, and the collaboration with the people of Guilford has been well received by the community. Detect was there to test people prior to the vaccine being available, and fears were at an all-time high. Detect Inc. provided relief to many in the community, including town staff and the police and fire departments. Once the vaccine rolled out and the majority of the local public was vaccinated, Detect leaned on our most frequent participants to keep supporting us in our need for swabs, even though the public felt confident that the worst was behind them. When the Delta and Omicron variants arrived and the community was concerned about breakthrough cases, once again, Detect provided a valuable service to the community of Guilford with frequent free testing to provide peace of mind. While Detect has received FDA emergency use authorization, we feel that now is not the proper time to pull up stakes and stop testing. We are now in the planning stages of expanding our product offerings to other viruses such as the flu, strep, and STIs. As the new school year has just begun, a combined COVID-19 flu test now available in the trailer should have added benefit to schools in the community. We want to continue to engage community involvement to gather more samples for research and development for a new in-home medical device. We have support from the community for this undertaking and are giving out $5 gift cards from Cilantro Coffee Roasters for this community participation, and have received support throughout the town of Guilford. This effort will not only keep the community safe, but will also continue to bring the town of Guilford together for a good cause in developing a new at-home test kit for COVID-19, flu, strep A, and eventually STIs. Additionally, Detect's mission is to build tools that empower people and make timely decisions about their health. And therefore, we request that we be granted an extension of our permit to continue testing at 351 New Whitfield Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Question. So, Jamie, we're still, as far as Governor Lamont and his executive orders, we're still kind of underneath that window, correct? As far as COVID-19 goes. So I don't think anyone, yeah, you can bring up that.
And yeah,
The locations of the trailers haven't changed or anything.
they're right here, correct? Yes. Yeah.
So one question that I have is it's great that you're expanding yourselves to other testing of other, viruses and whatnot. Do you have plans for a more permanent solution to this item? Instead of coming to before us every 2 years for an extension again of a temporary solution? I think it makes sense to me personally, at least, and we can open it up to the other commissioners about this is still related to COVID-19. We're still dealing with that issue. So it makes sense to me in this turn, but I wanted to hear from you about what future you might be looking towards as a more permanent solution.
Well, right now, because, because it's, right now because we're leasing the space, we don't really have a plan to build at this moment. Because right now, COVID it's changing all the time. So for right now, we would just consider a temporary space. And but in the future, it's a possibility, but we don't have any plans at this moment.
God, I think another way of saying that is that might be above someone's pay grade. Like,
Yeah, it's kind of a non-answer. So,
but I mean, I don't need the applicant in the position. She's not the owner of the company, and she's not.
I'm not the owner.
Sure. My question is also directed at is more of a statement, I guess, also if you should talk to your leasee potentially, or whatever your future plans might be to think about something that's more permanent solution.
And I would just suggest that the owner come before the commission at some point.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
Any other commissioners have any questions or comments?
I will personally lend my support to the testing of the trailer. I live relatively close, and whenever I get an email asking to go down, I try and schedule an appointment, and I think they provide a valuable service. I don't think from a flood standpoint they're creating any increased danger to neighbors or properties in the area, and I think the benefits of the service they're providing significantly outweigh any concerns about a elevated trailer. I mean, I guess my question only would be is there a way to anchor a trailer that I'm unaware of or that they haven't done that we would want?
I'm not sure.
Again, just kind of hypothetical.
This is Bill. I think their service has been amazing, and I've used them many times, including when I had COVID. They were making special accommodations to test me. So I think that for another 2 years, it's certainly worth having them there.
Let's hope a year from now we don't need it.
Right.
Phil, I suggest if you have a spare anchor, you just drop it off.
I would just go get a septic lid and tie it on or something. I don't know.
Okay. Jamie, we didn't have a motion prepared for this, right? We're gonna have somebody make a motion. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yep. So would someone like to make a motion to extend their special, what's it called? Existing permit for another 2 years?
I'd like to make a motion to extend the 4 catalyzer permit to allow the testing trailer for an additional 2 years.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
We'll go through Kevin Clark,
Yes.
Bill Freeman,
Yes.
Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Sean Cosgrove,
Aye.
Frank DeAndrea,
Aye.
Larry Rizzolo,
Yes.
and I will also vote yes. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. We'll move back to the public hearings portion with Jake's Cherry Street LLC, 397 Church Street, map 74, lot 3, zone I1. Site plan and special permit for a dental/medical office. This is a continuation from, I forget what date the first hearing was, Jamie.
Lisa did some extensive research. I want to say sometime in June, but Mr. Coppola can probably help me with that one.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, yes, the last meeting, the last public hearing, which we attended before the commission was on July 6, 2022. And for the record, my name is Mario Coppola. I am a partner at the law firm Birch & Moses with offices in Milford and Westport. And I represent Jake's Cherry Street LLC. I have members from our project team who have presented to you at the prior hearing with me this evening, and I will introduce them later to provide their commentary regarding the revised plans that were submitted to the commission. In response to comments we received from the commission and the public at the last hearing on July 6. The revised plans that we submitted were dated September 6, 2022, and there was a letter provided by me dated September 13, 2022, which outlined revisions made in the plans and was submitted along with the plans. So at our last meeting, the owner of a neighboring property, Christopher Marchese, was also the president of Triton Environmental, the company that has, or the environmental group that has submitted a letter as well to the commission, and is also located adjacent to the subject property and the property owned by Brockway Holdings. So we took the sentiments from the commission, which at least what we perceived to be your sentiments at the last hearing, to try to work with Mr. Marchese to address his concerns. And contrary to some of the statements made in his letter, which I was disappointed to read and surprised, quite frankly, to read, we have gone out of our way and above and beyond what really I think is necessary to try to accommodate a neighbor's concerns, to work with him over the past few months. And ultimately, I don't know if we'll ever get to the point where we would satisfy him, but we have certainly done everything that we can to try to do so. And quite frankly, had we been a little bit more savvy about the manner in which we've approached this with him, we probably would have tried to determine, what revisions he would want from the plan to satisfy him and to withdraw his objection before we were willing to make any further changes to the plans, which were not required by our regulations. However, we took the approach at the direction of our client, Dr. Joseph Tartagni, who was the principal of Jake's Cherry Street LLC, to work in good faith with him and to try to make any and all revisions that we thought we could make to accommodate his requests. And just to give you an idea of timeline, we had our last public hearing on July 6th. Kurt Lowenstein, the engineer who's the principal on our design, in charge of our design team, attended that site visit along with Brian Carey as well from Land Tech, and Dr. Joseph Tartagni and Mr. Marchese. And at the time, they did a site visit of the property, and they discussed various options based on Mr. Marchese's comments. There was a follow-up Zoom call with Mr. Marchese on July 29th to discuss his first round of comments that I believe we received from him on July 26th. On August 4th, we provided a first revision of the plans to Mr. Marchese to address his comments that we received on July 26th. On August 8th, our project team had a phone call with him to discuss his second round of comments. On August 23rd, he was provided with an email as to our progress with making additional revisions to the plans in response to his second round of comments on August 8th. There was then a second email to him with an update on the progress of that draft agreement on August 29th. On September 7th, we provided him with the second revised plan and a draft agreement, which was in the form of a joint letter to the commission to address his request that there be an agreement amongst Jake's Cherry Street LLC and Brockway Holdings with regard to changes to the project plans and other conditions that he wanted imposed on the property. There was a follow-up discussion, telephone discussion, which I had with him on September 9th to discuss the draft joint letter that I had submitted to him for his review. And then there was sometime since then, I guess it was last night, that I then sent to him a follow-up email with a proposed escrow agreement. And part of the time delay was that after our last discussion on September 9th, he wasn't satisfied with the approach of a joint letter to the commission and an escrow agreement for us to fund an escrow to pay for trees which may need to be replaced in the area of the shared tree line. When we had that discussion, there was a concern that I had about basically giving a neighboring property contractual rights over my client's property with regard to enforcing conditions pertaining to your approval. So that was where we have had an impasse. His letter, so there's a letter submitted to you on September 15th by Triton Environmental. And I do take umbrage with the last sentence of the first paragraph that said that although progress was initially made, the applicant's attorney cut off communications while project plans were still under review and prior to the establishment of legal and escrow agreements, both of which were contemplated in the discussions. I never at any point in time cut off discussions. By the way, while all this was going on, I also ended up getting hospitalized unexpectedly and having to have emergency surgery to remove my appendix. And so that did take me out of commission for a little while. So that was also part of the unintended time delay throughout this process. But I think that it was, and I first of all, I thank you for having the patience to listen to the timeline that I provided to you, but I wanted to confirm for the commission what we've done, the manner in which we've approached this, trying to work with the neighbor and to just set the facts straight as to our continued willingness to work with the neighbor to try to resolve his concerns. He mentioned in his letter legal and escrow agreements. Quite frankly, I don't think I've ever seen it in the almost 20 years of doing land use work in Connecticut, as well as in representing numerous municipalities in land use area over the years, where a applicant agreed in advance of any sort of litigation as part of a site plan or special permit process to agree to privately agree to an escrow with a neighbor to put money aside to address an issue of concern with the neighbor. And we had offered basically, if knowing that Mr. Marchese has raised this issue of concern about impact on trees in the tree line between the two properties, that we would put $5,000 in an escrow account. And to the extent that during a a period of time, 3 to 5 years. If there were trees that Mr. Marchese believed were impacted by the development, quite frankly, even if there wasn't evidence that they were impacted by the development, that there would be monies there to use to replace those trees, and that was something above and beyond that we've offered to try to be a good neighbor, quite frankly, and to try to resolve this concern he has about maintaining the integrity of the trees that are in this area. We have a licensed arborist, Brian Carey, who was going to provide you with testimony this evening regarding this concern about the trees. We disagree that the development imposes any risk of negatively impacting trees within the tree line, and our licensed arborist is going to provide testimony to that effect. Nonetheless, the idea of the escrow was, even though we don't think it's a genuine, it should be a genuine issue of concern, that we're trying to go above and beyond to try to pacify the concern that he had. I assume that you've had an opportunity to read the letter that I submitted on September 13th, outlining the significant revisions that we made to the plan, dated September 6th. Mr. Chairman, do you agree that it's not necessary for me to highlight the changes that we made in the plan as outlined in the letter? Or would you like me to do so?
Yeah, could you briefly just bring up the, I know that we've got, just so the other commissioners can take a look, as well as the public can look at the changes from the last meeting. I'm aware, is it still the plan that you're going to go back before this design review committee with the updated plans?
I believe at the suggestion of your staff, we are going to take that step.
That'll be next week, Mr. Chairman. This is Kurt Lowenstein from Land Tech, for the record. That meeting will happen next week.
I don't need you to go through it in huge detail, but could you just bring it up quickly and point at a couple of things that have changed?
Thank you for pointing out that it would be also helpful for the public. Brockway raised two principal concerns to us regarding the plan that was presented on July 6th.
Excuse me, Attorney Coppola, would you like me to pull up the letter, or do you have it to share on the screen?
Sure.
Is that what you were asking, Scott?
Or just the plan? Yeah.
Just the plan, I think.
Yep. I don't know if Mr. Lowenstein perhaps has
Yes,
it.
I can share that for everyone. Absolutely. Okay. That's visible to everybody?
Yep.
First, again, the Brockway raised two principal concerns. The first was density of the development and the retaining walls along the southern property line, which could result in the loss of the existing shared tree line and vegetation. So we made nine changes to the, well, actually 8 changes to the plans, and propose some conditions of approval to address that concern. First, we reduced and by the way, as I'm doing this, I'll ask Mr. Lowenstein to move his cursor to highlight the areas that I'm referring to. We reduced the building footprint by 216 feet, which resulted in the reduction of over 400 square feet of usable area in the building. We removed 2 parking spaces in the southwest corner of the property, which was closest to the Brockway property line. We, as a result of the removal of the 2 parking spaces in the southwest corner, that's being highlighted for you right now, the revised plan now provides for a 14-foot vegetative buffer in the area between the edge of the parking lot and the property line that is adjacent to the Brockway property. We removed the entire southwest retaining wall along the southern property line in the southwest corner of the property. In the area of the southern property line, we reduced the length of the southeast retaining wall so that the remaining portion of the wall is now entirely outside of the tree drip line of the existing trees along the southern property line. Number 6, we limited construction activity to outside the tree drip line of the existing trees along the southern property line in all areas except for a limited section in the southwest corner. The 7th change we made was we added additional low plantings to replace existing low-lying vegetation that will be removed from the property line shared with Brockway to enhance the overall aesthetic of the shared vegetative buffer. The 8th change we made was we added mulching to be placed in the area around the base of the existing and new plantings along the southern property line. On the plans, we added notes and details for required measures to be taken to protect the trees, roots, tree pruning, and surface fertilization. At the suggestion of Brockway, we have proposed some conditions of approval. First, that all root and tree pruning shall be performed under the direction of a licensed arborist and in accordance with the revised plans. And second, that the applicant is required to conduct a pre-construction meeting with the appropriate town staff prior to obtaining a permit from the town for any demolition and/or construction work to ensure all soil and erosion and sediment controls are installed in accordance with the revised plans. The second concern or primary concern raised by Brockway was the effectiveness and aesthetics of the proposed enclosure and screening around the dumpster. The revised plan in the area that's being shown to you now now provides that the dumpster will be screened with a wooden fence that is 6 feet in height and that will run on the top of the nearby wall. Additional plantings have been added on the lower side of the wall to provide additional low screening of the stone veneer of the wall. One thing I do want to note on the record is that we do appreciate the time that Mr. Marchese has spent in providing his comments, and quite frankly, a lot of the suggestions he has made for changes, while they've addressed his concerns, and I think hopefully have made it a better project from his perspective. Quite frankly, I think that many of the changes that we've made here in response to discussions with him and the time that he spent with us has improved the project for the applicant and for everybody that's going to see and go to the property. So we do appreciate the time that he has spent in trying to work with us. With that being said, what I'd like to do at this time is to turn over our presentation to Mr. Lowenstein, and he also has with him this evening from Land Tech, Brian Carey, who will address other issues, specifically those pertaining to the shared tree line.
Thank you, Mario. For the record, my name is Kurt Lowenstein. I'm a professional engineer with Land Tech. Our offices are in Westport. As Mario mentioned, we do have Brian Carey with Land Tech as well, who's a licensed arborist. And I'll keep my section brief and then pass it over to Brian to speak to the extent of what we've added for as far as the tree protection goes. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things to the commission, being that there have been some changes made, obviously, to the plan. From a stormwater standpoint, because we are before you for a special permit seeking that waiver, the impervious area on the basis that we're providing a comprehensive stormwater management plan. The stormwater design has not changed. All the infrastructure that was proposed previously is still being proposed in this iteration. Let me just bring the plans up here. In this iteration as well, flow patterns are maintained. The only change really is the slight reduction in impervious area and some minor regrading along the southern property line as a result of our discussions with Mr. Marchese. There were some concerns that were brought up by Mr. Marchese in regards to our method for tree protection and the root pruning. So I'll switch to that plan, and I'd like to have Brian speak to it as an expert in this field for everybody, just to better understand where some of the differences in their comment letter are with what we have proposed here.
And just before Mr. Carey addresses those issues, I'd ask that Mr. Carey just give the commission a very brief summary of his professional credentials, especially with regard to the area of the tree preservations, et cetera.
Absolutely. Thank you. For the record, my name is Brian Carey. I'm the Director of Environmental Services at Land Tech with offices in Westport, Connecticut. I am a Connecticut licensed arborist, number 6328. I've also been involved with the project on another aspect, shepherding it through the previous inland wetland approval process, and also through the comments through the engineering and health department, which we've all received approvals to date. I am also a professional wetland scientist, number 6566. I have been out to the site multiple times throughout the application process. Most recently, I was out to the site when we had a meeting in August with the applicant and adjacent property owner. We did do an inspection of the tree line to identify concerns that Mr. Marchese had regarding the condition of the tree line as it related to our proposed project, which at that time had a retaining wall. My inspection of the tree line when Mr. Marchese was present was that there are significant issues with almost all of the trees that were reviewed in the field. The bulk of the trees are maples, either Norway maple, which is a state listed invasive species, red maple, and also sugar maples. The trees all range in size between 24 dBH diameter breast height down to a scrub shrub. Most of the trees are showing exhibit codominance, which means that they have a leader that is basically has two tree leaders that are meeting at one, which tends to be representation of a poor formed tree, where crotches can form because of wood that grows included. Generally, if trees are maintained during the early part of their planting, an arborist would look to trim out codominance out of a tree or would reject it prior to planting. Most of the trees were exhibiting that type of structural deficiency. In addition, especially Norway maples, but all maples tend to have what's called girdling root, where the root is actually starts to grow around the exterior base of the trunk, which can lead to crown dieback and also prevents vigor in the tree. That was also noted throughout most of the trees that were at the property. We weren't necessarily there at that meeting to do a tree assessment, but that was incidental to our discussions at the time. We completely understand and respect the wishes of Mr. Marchese as the adjacent property owner to protect that tree line, for visual aesthetics and to keep a barrier between the properties. That being said, we provided a very detailed root pruning and tree protective plan that was developed using the ISA standards, which is basically the foremost standards for arboriculture. The ISA stands for the International Society of Arboriculture. It is the overwhelming professional industry organization that does put out their basic specifications and standards for tree care. I know Mr. Marchese, and in the letter they provided the 2002 DEP stormwater manual as a methodology for protecting trees. While that is absolutely correct in some points, I would not say that it's the overarching professional standard that would be used when we're dealing with tree protection during construction. So we've gone to, if you look at sheet C3, we have gone to our utmost lengths to minimize the damage to any trees that exist within that tree line. We've provided tree protection notes, root pruning notes, fertilization notes, and specifications regarding digging, and having an arborist, not myself, but a project arborist who would be hired to assist whatever contractor is hired to basically oversee this tree protection program. That being said, the reason I did bring up the condition of the trees at the beginning of the discussion is of great concern is comorbidity. No matter how much protection you can provide these trees during the construction process, because of the condition of the trees, there's no arborist who's going to certify that there's that one issue led to their decline or failure as opposed to another. The best thing we can do is protect them using the existing tree protection methodologies that are being proposed, but also to come up with a planting plan in case of worst case scenario, if there was some minor loss of trees out at the property. We have come up with a robust planting plan that was approved by the Wetland Commission, but also in theory by the Architectural Review Board. We think that is, very sufficient. We don't think that will lead to any type of loss of visual aesthetic between the two properties. We think it's protective of wetlands. And truthfully, it's all native species. The shrub area between the two properties, the understory is made up of mostly invasives that we don't plan on removing, but we do plan on supplementing as part of this planting plan. So I think the applicant has gone above and beyond what is normally required for this type of zoning application. I've been in the business for many years in both private and public practice. And generally there's not this level of tree protection on most projects unless it's related to some type of specimen tree or heritage tree, or if there's, there's some more sensitive type of receptor that stands to benefit from tree protection. But that being said, we understand the concerns, and we've gone, basically above and beyond using industry standards, and to put practices in place that will act as a stop guard to make sure that the recommendations and specifications are being followed in the field by the contractor. So that being said, I can really answer any questions regarding the letter or regarding anything that's been submitted as part of our application regarding the plantings or the tree protection specifications.
Scott, you're muted.
Sorry, I was doing a little coughing in the background. Ms. Attorney Coppola, do you have anything else for your presentation, or is that pretty much everything you had to present?
I would just like to check with Mr. Lowenstein to see if he has anything further to provide at this time.
Thank you. No, I think we've hit all the main points of it. We'd like to turn it over to the commission for any questions that there may be.
Great, thanks. Any questions from commissioners?
Yeah, this is Sean. Either Jamie or Scott, for your part, can you just refresh the the audience and the commissioners with why this required a special permit. Did it have to do with impervious surfaces primarily, or was it something else?
Yep, Jamie, I'll let you take that.
Yep, it was impervious coverage, Sean. We have a maximum allowed impervious coverage in this zone. The project exceeds that coverage, and our zoning regulations allow for exceedance of that coverage by going through a special permit application process.
And by how much does this project exceed our current impervious surface standards?
Kurt, I'll let you cover that one.
Sure. Kurt Lowenstein for the record. What's permitted is 40% in this zone, which is approximately 15,500 square feet. We are proposing roughly 24,000 square feet of impervious area. While I recognize, that is a significant difference in what's permitted, we are dealing with a site that is smaller as compared to the other sites in this area. So from a gross standpoint of amount of impervious proposed, this is one of the much smaller developments in the area. And I can certainly bring up an aerial to show and reference the neighboring properties and the properties across the street as far as density goes with impervious relative to our development here.
Would that be helpful, Mr. Chairman, for us to set up?
I don't think so. I don't think so at this point. Sean, do you understand the point? Or do we need?
Well, I understand the point. I understand the point that the amount of impervious surface that they're requesting is 40% more?
More.
20% more than what is than what's permitted.
Okay, all right. And you're suggesting that your mitigation techniques to alleviate potential flooding are sufficient.
Well, it's part of the requirement, and Jamie can correct me if I'm wrong. It's part of the requirement for us to provide this waiver. That would be part of our, if we were to approve the submission, we'd have to approve a waiver, waiving that piece. And I believe as part of the waiver, we'd have to find that there was a specific system utilized to allow them to go over the 40%. Is that correct, Jamie?
I think, I can give a general response to that and just saying that the stormwater management plan that has been proposed and that remains even with the changes was extensively reviewed by our environmental planner as well as by our town engineer and was given a green light. Kurt, do you have anything more to add?
All right.
No, you took the words right out of my mouth. That's what I was going to reiterate for the record, that it's been reviewed and approved.
And so Brockway's request for any kind of bond is, they're requesting a pretty large bond. Should we just ignore that as part of a performance issue for flooding?
So, I mean, Jamie, you can speak to what we typically do in terms of subdivisions. And typically it's based off just landscaping in general and whether the landscaping that's being proposed takes root. I don't remember really discussing having bonds in the past related to whether or not trees survived, existing trees.
So, Mr. Chairman, it's Brian Carey from Land Tech. A wetland bond is required for the plantings that are at least adjacent to the wetlands. It normally does not apply to the street trees. I don't know how Guilford works the street trees.
Well, the street trees is different. That's covered by the board, and so that's not this case.
So,
correct?
But the bond for the plantings would normally be covered under our wetland approval.
And Mr. Chairman, I can also say that we have past projects that have required landscape performance bonds.
Sure.
So we could work with, Attorney Chuck Andrus to configure something.
So I guess, Sean, that would be a question for the commission in general about whether we collectively felt like there was a need in this case, or if what's been proposed is acceptable.
I'm just saying that you know, Cherry Street has made significant changes to their plans, but Brockway still has, I think, meaningful concerns.
Sure.
They are an area of the town where, you know, drainage is going to be an issue. It currently is an issue, and it will be an issue if we have, you know, future stronger storms. So all I'm saying is that if we're going to approve this application, there should be, and I'm not prepared to specify, but I just think there should be some stipulations.
Stipulations really.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sure.
I think we're talking about two different things here. The bond that is referenced in the Brockway or the Triton letter is in reference to the existing trees along the property line. The stormwater management system that's being proposed and has been approved is not an issue that they're implying with that with their request of that bonding. The stormwater system has been designed to attenuate and reduce peak flows from the site all the way up to the 100-year storm, which, as 100-year implies, is of the rare storm events that you will get. So I think as far as the stormwater goes, we've provided a very robust plan that it will help actually mitigate future potential future drainage issues that could occur.
Any other questions from commissioners? I'll open it up for questions from the public. Jamie, is there anyone else in the audience there with you?
No, sir.
All right, any questions from folks on the Zoom call? Seeing none, I'll ask for anyone that wants to speak in support of this application. And anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this application. Yep, Mr. Marchese, please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, thank you. My name is Chris Marchese. I am the owner of the Brockway Professional Center, 385 Church Street, and also president of Triton Environmental, one of the tenants in the building at 385 Church Street. My property abuts the applicant's property on the entire southern boundary, as well as the entire eastern boundary as well. I appreciate the time and appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I'm going to really get into the two main issues that I wanted to talk about. There was a timeline presented. I'm not going to rebut that or go through it. It's not worth the time to do that, your time to do that. So back in July, we had submitted a comment letter and we attended the meeting and we reiterated or expressed our concerns at that point. We've updated that with a new submittal, I think just recently on September 8th, or excuse me, a little bit later than that, the 13th or 14th. Our objectives remain the same as they did back in July, and we did have meaningful conversations with the neighbor and his consultant, but we ultimately did not get to where we needed to be. Our primary, and I really want to focus on this because there's a lot of discussions about drainage and the plans as they sit today, but I want to go back to our primary concern at the July meeting remains the same. And that is that the request for a waiver of the maximum impervious area standard of 40%, where they're proposing 60, 65%, somewhere in that range right now, we think is inappropriate. The sole basis for this request is to allow the overdevelopment of this really small lot. It's an overdevelopment and it's beyond what is needed for the applicant's own use, which is a dental office. They've expressed and they've indicated very clearly that the additional space that requires this waiver is because of rental space that they would build out and rent beyond what they need for their own dental space. So I think we, not me, but hopefully you as a commission will look at that and decide if that is something that's appropriate. I say inappropriate because it leads to a much more massive structure than otherwise would be allowed. And that leads to the need for more parking, more drives, more sidewalks. Everything gets pushed out towards the property boundaries. Without that waiver, without that massive structure, it's not needed. And I say massive, I have a building that's twice as big as this structure that they're proposing, but it's on a 7-acre parcel. So it's not the size of the building, it's the density within the lot that is really the concern, and the attendant issues that go along with that. So I wanted to give an example of what could be done if there wasn't this additional space being built out for rental income beyond what is needed for the dental office as presented by the prior presenters. So if they had, and I just need to look at a document here, but if the gross floor area was reduced from 9,704, and I know it's been slightly changed to about 4,852 square feet. This would reduce the parking by spaces by 19, and all the parking, drives, and all of the attendant features would also be reduced. And the resulting impervious area would be about 45%. So to me, is there a need, is there a hardship beyond just, I want rental income, I want rental space so I can build it out for rental income? Is there a need for that? Some other hardship that we don't know of? Because from my perspective, the intention of the waiver option is not necessarily to just simply overdevelop the property as much as you can. It would be for hardship cases. It may be if you're close to the 40% and you're at 43%, maybe 45%, but to go all the way up to 60, 65% is going to set a precedent. I actually have the ability to build another large building on my property right next door. Should I go back now and look at the density that I could build out so I can rent out to more tenants? And my point is that's exactly what's going to happen. It's going to happen. It could happen on my property, but it's going to happen on all other future development properties. So I'm asking the commission to look at it really carefully and decide whether this is the kind of thing that you want to do and how it will change Guilford. I grew up in Guilford. I love Guilford. I now operate 3 businesses in Guilford, and I do it for a reason. I think that this will change. I think it'll change Guilford over the long haul if all developers think that they can do a 65% impervious surface area. And if it's 65%, why isn't 75? Why isn't 90% okay? So that's one of my main points that I asked the commission to seriously think about and make a decision that's wise for the town for the long haul. My second point, I am not adverse to development. I'm a developer myself as another hat that I wear. I'm absolutely all for it, and I have no problem with this property being developed. Beyond the massive structure and the overdevelopment that I just talked about, my other primary issue is to see this tree line. It's a natural tree line. It's a fence line. I'd like to see it preserved, and I'd like everything to be done to ensure that it's preserved. At the last meeting that we had in July, at that point in time, the development was pushed right up to the property boundary. There was a retaining wall, there was pavement. Everything was right up against the property boundary. I brought up the point that that property boundary contains a large number of trees on it. That is smack dab in the middle of the property line. And that therefore those trees are not owned by me, and it's not owned by the adjacent property owner. It's co-owned. That's a state law. And that one party or the other can't just go and cut those trees down or damage them to the point that they die. That wasn't shown on the drawings, but yet they were positioned to be cut down, all of them. That's the plan that was submitted to you. So when I brought this up, the applicant had their surveyor come back out and survey the property line. And yes, in the end, almost all of those trees were exactly as I said, based on my survey on the property line and co-owned. So we do have a different situation. This is not just how do you protect some trees that are on their property. These are trees that are co-owned, and their development plans, if not done properly and approved by reviewed and approved by the commission, will likely have detrimental impact. I developed my property in 2004, 2005. So I've been in this location for about 15, 17 years, and the trees look the same as they've grown. There's a couple that were in one end of the eastern end that had some issues, but the vast majority of it, I welcome all of you to go out there and take a look. We all value that tree line. The tenants that I have in the building value it. Yale, Physical Therapy, Triton, we all value that tree line, and it's co-owned, and we should put the effort into trying to preserve it. And certainly shouldn't just let it get to the point where it can decline and or die off, simply have an overdevelopment for rental income beyond what is needed on the property. So once the survey was done, we did go back and forth with a lot of the concepts that you see currently on their plan did come from me. That's kind of concerning because those are the kinds of things that should come from them. Number one, the survey should have captured the ownership. Number two, these kinds of protection issues should be raised directly by them as opposed to the neighboring property. But besides that, at some point in time, there was a breakdown in communications for whatever reason. And I had my engineers do some additional homework, and I had them plot using the Connecticut guidelines. The arborist for the applicant called it sediment erosion control guidelines, but they are the Connecticut guidelines, and internal within that is a whole section on tree protection. And I've attached that to our letter, and I wish you would look at that and see what it has to say. That is a very good guideline for tree protection in these kinds of situations. And it's the Connecticut guideline, the state of Connecticut guideline, which I think we should look at. Within that guideline, they tell you how to delineate the tree protection zone and the critical root zone. I had our engineers do that, and they essentially create a bubble around each tree based on the diameter at breast height, approximately 4 feet up. And that creates a continuous line along that southern property boundary. And that's shown, we superimpose that on land text drawing. And you can look at that and see that a lot of the work that is still being proposed is within those two areas. So I did get concerned, and I've raised that in my subsequent letter that needs to be looked at carefully. Why are we doing work within a critical root zone, within the tree protection zone, on a tree line that is co-owned by both property owners, and both property owners have a responsibility to maintain the trees or come to an agreement that they get cut down or get damaged? which I'm not in agreement with. So although our primary request is that the commission disapprove the applicant's waiver based on the overdevelopment of the property, I was hoping I could get to the point, working with the applicant, that we could get comfortable. We have not gotten comfortable. And so as such, if you go forward and approve some kind of plan beyond disapproval of the waiver, I ask a few things. One, I think it's important for the applicant to use the state guidelines, Connecticut state guidelines, to delineate the tree protection zone and the critical root zone along that entire southern boundary. And then require the applicant to develop and submit for review, comment, and approval a tree protection plan. And this should be a written plan with drawings, specifics, not just general notes on a drawing. There's a big difference between general notes on a drawing for construction, as opposed to articulating very clearly how you plan on going about tree protection, and for all of us to review and understand. As an example, and I put this in our letter, we had asked for a fertilization program. They agreed to do a fertilization program, but their notes lack the specificity as to the frequency of that. And that's not just typically a one-time application during a construction project like this. There is a root pruning zone that goes right up to the property boundary. The root pruning was intended to be really in the area at the drip line or further out towards where the pavement's going to be, not all the way up to the property boundary, which indicates that there's some other kind of root work going to be done in that area, which has us very concerned. So a tree protection zone, a tree protection plan that's written with drawings as well articulated, and very specific for review, comment, and approval would be very helpful in this case. And then finally, I did request that a bond be posted to ensure that the tree protection plan is implemented. The $50,000, actually, the bond that I suggested is actually not, it would cover certainly a lot more than just those measures that we would want to see put into place. It's really taken from a certain percentage of the trees, not even all of them. These are mature trees that are 30, 40, 50, 60 feet in height that go into decline and death within a 3 to 5 year period post-construction and need to be replaced. The fact is, you're never going to replace those trees. Again, I ask you to go out there and just take a look at it from our perspective. Take a look at it, and I think you'll realize that replacing those trees is a daunting task. And if you know much about the cost of mature 6, 8-inch DBH trees, bringing in a spade, removal of existing trees, proper protection and long-term maintenance, $50,000 for what you see there today is actually a very small percentage of the overall. So those are my comments. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Before we get, Attorney Coppola will have opportunity for you to have closing comments. I wanted to see if there's anyone else in the public that wants to speak in opposition to this item. It looks like we have Maureen Belden. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure, I'm Maureen Belden. I'm the Executive Director at Guilford Art Center, which is at 411 Short Street. I just wanted to state for the record that Guilford Art Center would request that approval be predicated on the condition that Jake's Cherry Street finalize an easement with GAC for the use of our driveway. You know, there's a letter from our attorney, Keith Ainsworth, that I believe was entered into the record in the July meeting, but it wasn't discussed, and I don't know that it was. We just wanted to make sure that the commissioners know that the letter is there, and that this easement, we really strongly would ask that approval be predicated on the easement.
Appreciate that. I believe it was discussed in the last meeting, like you said, but we'll have Attorney Copeland speak to that. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from the public that want to speak in opposition to this item? All right, Attorney Copeland, any closing remarks based off of everything that's been presented in the public hearing?
Yes, first, let me just, I guess, address a quick, I guess, housekeeping item. Ms. Belden is correct that that we have submitted into the record and stated that we will be executing an easement agreement with the Art Center, and we understand that that the plan contemplates the property rights that would be associated with the easement agreement. And we certainly are fine with a condition that addresses the easement agreement. I'm hopeful that we'll actually have the agreement done and executed prior to the commission voting on this. And we'll endeavor to get that done sooner than later. But we certainly intend to do so. And we are, again, fine with a condition of approval to that effect to assuage any concerns of the Art Center. And by the way, just for the record, they've been great to work with, and it's been a good partnership, and we look forward to supporting the Art Center going forward and continuing to work with them. With regard to comments by Commissioner Cosgrove earlier, I just want to reiterate that in this case, we are before you with the request for a special permit solely because of the request for the waiver. And I think it's important to point out that the waiver is allowed in your regulations. That your commission made a conscious decision when it created the specific regulation that allows for the modification of the standard, which is section 273-48 subsection D, that your commission contemplated allowing for waivers in this manner. Mr. Marchese had referred to precedent. This was a decision by the commission to allow waivers in this context, and to allow waivers consistent with the request that we made here, which was requesting 62.4%, which is 24,120 square feet of impervious coverage, where otherwise 40%, 15,450 square feet would be allowed. So I respectfully disagree with this concern about precedent, because again, your regulations allow for the waiver, and your commission made a conscious decision to allow for the modification of the standard when the applicant then is willing to go for a special permit approval, which includes a submission of a stormwater management plan as further required by your regulations, and compliance with drainage in your code as further required by your regulations.
Sure. Attorney Copeland, a question here from Philip Johnson.
So could you, under the same premise, say we want a 75% coverage or an 85% coverage or a 100% coverage, just because it is allowed under a special permit exception by a prior commission? I mean, there doesn't seem to be, I mean, the code is set up supposedly to protect the properties. And I'm thinking if it's an insignificant change, that's one thing, but you know, it is 65% okay? Is 75% okay? Is 85% okay? Are all those things, in your opinion, allowed by special permit?
I would ask Mr. Lowenstein to also comment here, because I'm not an engineer, so you're asking me about percentages. And
well, I mean, the application calls for 65%, correct?
No, the application requests 62.4%.
Sorry,
where 40% is allowable. And so I'd ask Mr. Lowenstein to comment or to respond as well. But before he does, this was a regulation obviously approved by the commission. And to the extent that the commission has or to the extent that the commission had when it created the regulation, a concern about at what point, is too much, is the number too high? The commission could have addressed that in the regulation. The commission could
Sure,
have.
so
the commission-
it's unspoken then what it could potentially be.
Brian Carey
but
from
can I
Land
just
Tech.
can I just say something? I think the regulation gives the commission, and I'll put the word in quotes, discretion.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, that is what the commission is given.
Mr. Carey, you wanted to interject something?
Yeah, so I have been working on this, and I know Jamie has been working on this with me going back to when she first came to town and when I was dealing with this through the Wetland Commission, and just a little background of why we are where we are with this special permit request. The previous planner at the time, when we came forward prior to going to inland wetlands, when we were having staff meetings, the other option was to go get a variance for parking for the size of the building. And it was told to us at the time that the better path forward would be not to seek a variance for the amount of parking, but to actually go forward and request a site plan approval for the additional impervious. So we didn't just come forward with that. It was kind of discussed previously with the previous town planner about the best path forward rather than seeking a variance.
Is this George or are you talking about Aaron?
Aaron.
Okay, so Aaron was never the town planner.
I'm sorry, I misspoke, town planner, but that is the discussion that was had and the reason why this was brought forward as it was. Just to give background on the matter.
Thank you. Attorney Copeland, you want to finish with your closing?
Yes, just to respond to a few other things that Mr. Marchese had said. He talked about a hardship with regard to the waiver. I think he said it a few times. There is no hardship requirement. There's no requirement to demonstrate a hardship as there would be, for example, for a variance. The regulations do not state the word hardship, nor provide any sort of requirement that the applicant demonstrate a hardship in order to be granted the waiver. One thing that he also said a few times was that the building was an overdevelopment of the site, and we disagree with that. The size of the building is allowed under your regulations. The size of the building is consistent with other buildings in the area, as he stated. The proposed building, which he described as a massive structure, is by his own admission half the size of the building that he has next door. The comments about being overdevelopment of the building being too big, we quite frankly disagree with. He also mentioned a few times that there's not a need for the additional square footage in the building, and we also disagree with that. We've been very frank with this commission as well as other town commissions over the past year about the plans for this project. At this point, the plans are to open a new shoreline full service dental practice at the property. We don't know how many square feet that the practice will need. We know at a minimum it would need at least one floor, but it is possible that it's going to need both floors, especially as the practice continues to expand its services, including for sleep apnea services, which has been successful for me, by the way, as well as other services that the practice is expanding with, and anticipates expanding with in future years. So we don't know if some of the space would be rented or all used by the shoreline dental practice. Quite frankly, it's irrelevant. And for the record, zoning regulates use as a basic tenet of land use law. Zoning regulates use, not ownership. and whether the owner is using it or a tenant is really irrelevant for your review. I think he said it a few times to justify his request to have the building size reduced. And we do not think that's a valid basis for the commission to consider with regard to his request to have the building size reduced. With regard to the tree line, I just want to point out as well that to the extent that there's any issues with a concern about shared ownership of a tree, Mr. Marchese would be within his right to file a private cause of action for that. I think that the tree line is to a certain extent almost beyond a lot of the concerns that he's raised, are somewhat beyond the review of the commission. And again, we've tried to address those concerns, including offering to help fund an escrow account to address trees that would decline in future years, regardless of whether there be any impact from the proposed development. So with that all being said, I just want to ask if Mr. Lowenstein has any further comments in response to the public comments or comments of the commission before we end our presentation.
Yeah, I'd just like to add one thing, and I think it may be helpful if I can pull up the aerial quickly for everybody to kind of lay to rest some of this back and forth as far as the overdevelopment is concerned. So everybody can kind of understand visually what we're looking at with regards to the size of our development as comparison to the neighborhood around us. So this is our site here, and this is Mr. Marchese's property here. You have the police department across, and you have the recreational facilities here, commercial development next door, and Guilford Arts Center. The building that we're proposing here with the associated parking, as far as an impervious area, which is the focus of this special permit request, is far less than the surrounding properties. We're providing a robust stormwater management system that has been reviewed and approved by your town engineer that attenuates all the way up to the 100-year storm event, which is above and beyond what most towns require. Guilford is thinking forward with that, and we do appreciate that, and we've adhered to that. So I won't belabor that anymore, but I just want everyone to understand that this is not a gross overdevelopment of a piece of property, especially in comparison to the development of the properties around us. And with that, I'll close, and then if Brian Carey has any other comments, I'd like to turn it to him as well.
Scott?
Yep.
Can I just, for the record, like, share my screen?
Yep.
Thanks. Trying to do that right now. Not sure how I'm doing that. Let's see.
Do you have permission?
I'm trying. Okay.
I believe everyone has permission, yeah.
There we go.
Do you
So, you know,
stand up?
so I'm sharing this. This is the size of the adjacent property. And this is the size of the property that we're talking about. So when we're talking about density of development in terms of, I'm sorry, 62%, was that the, you know, versus the density of development on this one? Yes, it's a much bigger building, but it's a significantly bigger piece of property. So you're not really making an apples to apples comparison when you talk about the development of this property versus the size of the building on a significantly larger piece of property. Just wanted to bring that out. I mean, I know there's a lot of development across the street and there's a lot of development at the art center, but
I have to respectfully disagree with you there, Mr. Johnson, because when we're speaking density, yes, that property next to us and the adjacent properties have more overall gross land. But when you're looking at the development itself and the density of the impervious areas, they're highly concentrated in the front of the property and along the road. And across the street, that is a very significant piece of development.
Sure.
So yes, you can look at it from a percentage standpoint and say that there's a large wooded area in the back. But when we're speaking from an overdevelopment and a density perspective, all of these properties are very dense in the actual impervious development that they're in. So I just don't want to, I don't want this to get misled in that
No, I'm
regard.
not trying to mislead. I'm just trying to give a perspective about the two properties and the comparison between the two.
Sure. So certainly the property size is different. I think what the argument they're trying to make is that the building is a similar size to what's around it and that the parking lots are a similar size to what's around it. Is that correct, Kurt? Effectively.
That's exactly it. Thank you.
And so it's, yeah, Philip, to your point, it's going to be up to us as a commission to make that decision of which perspective do we agree on.
And
Yeah, and I'll just say this, you know, if you look at the map that Phil just put up, there's a lot of impervious surface. Do we want to add more? That's my question. I mean, I'm all for, you know, more development in that area.
So
I'm just,
yeah, I appreciate your comments, Sean. So Jamie, before we belabor this a little bit too far, let's talk about logistics of where we're headed. There's still one piece that's hanging out here is that the applicant is going back to design review committee because it was determined by town staff that the change specifically to the retaining wall was enough of a change that needed to go back to design review. Did you have a question?
Thank you, Scott. Is that the design review committee gave a conditional approval to the applicants and requested that they come back with refined floor plans and materials. And they also, and this is, I have communicated this to the applicant team, they also had concerns over the retaining wall. And since the revision to the plan took away a great deal of that retaining wall, we decided collectively, and the applicant agreed without reservation, to go before the design review committee, and they have called a special meeting for next Wednesday, September 20th.
Great, thank you. Larry, did you have a question about logistics?
yeah, and thinking about density and the adjacent lot, and so much of that lot is wooded, but is that buildable land?
That's not the way we assess it.
I know that's
okay.
If it's wetland and you can't build on it,
right? But that's not the way that's not, under our current regulations. That's not the way we develop. It might be in the future, but you can have a 1/4 acre of lot on an 8-acre parcel that's mostly like marsh, and it's 8 acres, and you get to develop the percentage based upon that. You know, that's not the way we do it right now. We don't calculate it based on, you know, what you could actually build on. It's just the total size, which I don't think is right, but that's the way it's done.
So to continue, not trying to interject too much here, but we need to, so Jamie, is it your suggestion that this be continued as a open public hearing or to the next, or that we close the hearing based off of until we get the new information from design review? What's your suggestion?
Yes, that was the request of the design review committee, is that they could see the application again before the Planning and Zoning Commission rendered their decision on the site plan application, special permit application. Also, Steve and Lisa and I worked to do the calculation in terms of the amount of time that we have to open a public hearing, and then the amount of time with the applicants granting or requesting extensions. And that time frame will sort of end on October 15th. So for the applicant to come back before you on October 5th, it fits within that time.
Right, so everyone on commissioners, that's the plan, that's the current plan, is that design review would again meet on this, send us their send us their recommendation. And that we would
Can I ask a quick question?
deliberation.
Is design review just talking about the actual structure itself? And I mean, they're not addressing the coverage area, they're just addressing how the building looks, correct? And design review is advisory, right?
Design review is advisory, but I do know that design review has extensive conversations with all applicants about their landscape plans. And that seems to be very pertinent. To this
Mr. Freeman.
I just missed the nuance whether we were going to leave it open or close it and just not doing it until we hear from design review.
It's the suggestion of Jamie that we leave it as an open hearing, open.
Okay.
public
I
hearing.
couldn't. Okay, thanks.
I would support that.
Based off of that, do I hear a motion to continue this to the October 5th here?
So moved. Moved.
Second.
Kevin Clark,
Yes.
Bill Freeman,
Yes.
Philip Johnson,
No.
Sean Cosgrove,
Yes.
Frank DeAndrea,
Yes.
Larry Rizzolo,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. We'll continue this to the October 5th meeting.
Good.
Take your time. Yes, Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If you don't mind, quick question for Jamie. Jamie, has Kevin looked at this property with his tree warden hat on? He may not even be allowed to. I think he may be limited to town property or town right away. But I was just curious if he had, and if he could take a look at it for future.
Yes, he could, and I believe he also submitted a memo for your.
Yeah, that just reminded Jamie. So
okay.
the next meeting, let's make a point to read that memo, please.
Okay, thank you.
The commission has access to that memo, and so does the public.
Yep.
For the record.
Yep. All right. Thank you for your time, everyone. We'll move on to the remainder of our regular meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
We've already done 4 catalyzer. We have no new applications on the horizon. The first other community commission business, approval of the minutes for September 7th meeting. Has anyone been able to review the minutes from that meeting?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, you have to do deliberations.
Sure. Okay. Yep, you're right. Deliberation of public hearing items. Does anyone have a motion they'd like to propose related to Ness 270 Race Hill Road?
The motion.
Got emailed to you.
I have the motion.
Yep. I'm all ears.
So should I read it?
Yes. Please.
Proposed motion, Ness 270 Race Hill Road approval. Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a special permit for a 1,200 square foot detached accessory apartment at 270 Race Hill Road, map 109, lot 35, A1, zone R8. The application is approved with the following conditions. The applicant shall file with the town clerk an original copy of the special permit approval to be provided by the Planning and Zoning Department and shall furnish written evidence to the Planning and Zoning Department that the document has been so recorded prior to Planning and Zoning sign off for building permits. A certificate of occupancy shall be obtained for the permitted finished basement of the primary dwelling unit prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the accessory dwelling unit. This application is approved based on a finding that it conforms with the town of Guilford Planning Zone, Guilford zoning code. The approval shall become effective 15 days after publication of the legal notice of decision and upon filing with the town clerk.
If I can interject, I believe there was at least one stipulation from Kevin McGee that we should add in, if that's good with you, Sean. You good with that, Sean?
Yes.
Any second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion?
This is, as I said earlier, this is one of the, you know, we're fitting the round peg into a square hole in this one by increasing the basement size in order to accommodate a significantly larger quote. I mean, if you looked at the two buildings, it would be hard to describe one as accessory to the second.
Yeah. As I said, I don't disagree with you there. At the same time, if they had finished it, the basement a year ago, without even talking about it, and then came before us, it wouldn't even have come.
But they're kind of co-doing it. So like we're granting this approval prior to the actual completion of that.
Yeah, that's true.
But there is a stipulation within the approval.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would rather it have already been finished.
Right.
Don't disagree with you there.
I mean, I think it's a lovely addition, and it certainly sounds like it's in-laws that are moving in. It's not like they're looking to develop a, you know, two-family rental situation.
No.
So, I mean, I'm of the mindset that this one kind of skirts the edge, but I think it's okay.
I would agree.
Any other comments? Roll call vote, Kevin Clark,
Yes.
Bill Freeman,
Yes.
Philip Johnson,
Yes.
Sean Cosgrove,
Aye.
Frank DeAndrea,
Affirmative.
Larry Rizzolo,
Yes.
and I will also vote yes. Is there anyone else that would have a motion, particularly related to Gurnham application?
Don't forget Mr. Akhtar.
Sure, thank you.
But I didn't see his, anything.
Yeah, I don't
for
actually
him.
have
Is
that one in front of me, so
Neither did I.
Is that from before? From,
I don't think we
yeah.
got forwarded one.
Yes, it was in the past package, and I can also, I can read it if you'd like.
Wait, which one are we doing?
Azar.
Well,
NASCAR. Yeah,
72
right.
Stepstone Hill Road.
you got that one?
I have the other one. Sorry.
Yeah. I don't remember seeing the NASCAR.
It wasn't in the packet that came late in the day. but
Jamie, I would rather
assume
if you wanted to give it to us, I'd rather you put it up on the screen and have one of the commissioners
Sure,
read
yeah,
it.
I'm happy to do that too. Why don't you, if you want to go through Gurnham, I will.
Yeah, would anyone like to propose something related to the Gurnham application?
Sure. Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a coastal site plan for Clifford and Lynn Gurnham 3 Guilford Point Drive, map 24, lot 8-9, zone R3 for demolition and rebuild of a single-family home with within 100 foot of a coastal resource as shown on the submitted plans. The approved plans are zoning location survey of 3 Guilford Point Drive, Guilford, Connecticut, prepared for Clifford and Lynn Gurnham, prepared by Geisick and Associates, PC dated December 18, 2020, Gurnham residents, 3 Guilford Point Drive, Guilford, Connecticut, zoning board of appeals submission, coastal site plan prepared by Summerhill, dated July 1st, 2022, 2 sheets. This application is approved that 1, the following conditions: 1, the final as-built surveys be submitted for all proposed structures, including the height of the structures and other improvements as specified before the certificate of occupancy approval by the zoning enforcement officer. 2, the town of Guilford zoning enforcement officer shall be notified to inspect the sedimentation and erosion control measures prior to any site work. Soil stockpiles should be contained by silt fencing and/or hay bales. Per the approved plan, soil erosion and sedimentation control measures shall be maintained until vegetation is established and suitable material is installed to the satisfaction of the zoning enforcement officer. 3, the town of Guilford zoning enforcement officer shall be notified to inspect the roof water infiltration system, and an as-built plan showing the infiltrator's location should be submitted to the zoning enforcement officer prior to issuance of certificate of zoning compliance. 4, the site should be inspected daily to ensure that all construction debris has been properly disposed of in a covered dumpster. 5, the average finished grade must be calculated before construction and detailed in the building permit application. Zoning compliance at the time of the building permit application regarding the height of the building cannot be determined until average height and maximum height are calculated and shown on the architectural plans. This application is approved. What's that?
I was just commenting that I like that one.
Yeah,
Good.
right. I like that too. And good job, Frank.
This application is approved based on the finding that it conforms with the zoning code and development and in accordance with the town's coastal area management regulation. The coastal site plan is effective 15 days after the legal notice of decision is published and upon filing with the town clerk.
Thank you, Frank. Do I hear a second?
I think Frank deserves some applause there. I really do.
Good job,
I
Frank.
drafted that one myself.
Do I hear a second?
Just to interject, there was also a request for the addition of the word demolition.
Oh, that's right. So change it.
I have that
Yeah.
line.
First demolition word.
Good one.
Next time, Frank.
Second.
So your second, thank you, Kevin. Any discussion? It seemed pretty straightforward to me, honestly. Hearing no discussion, I'll go straight to roll call. Kevin Clark,
Yes.
Bill Freeman,
Yes.
Philip Johnson,
Yes.
Sean Cosgrove,
Aye.
Frank DeAndrea,
Affirmative.
Larry Rizzolo,
Yes.
and I will also vote yes. And Jamie, you're prepared to put up one for Mr. Akhtar.
No?
Larry, we haven't heard from you. Would you like to
Sure. Proposed motion for Akhtar 72 Stepstone Hill Road. Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a special permit to render compliant an existing 772 square foot accessory apartment at 72 Stepstone Hill Road, map 91, lot 30, C4, zone R5. This application is approved with the following conditions. The applicant shall file with the town clerk an original copy of the special permit approval to be provided by the Planning and Zoning Department, and shall furnish written evidence to the Planning and Zoning Department that the document has been so recorded prior to Planning and Zoning sign-off for the building permits. 2, all components of the two-family residence assembly shall comply with the Connecticut State Building Code and be verified by the local building official. This application is approved based on a finding that it conforms with the Town of Guilford zoning code. This approval shall become effective 15 days after publication of the legal notice of decision.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. Freeman, thank you. Jamie, just to confirm that second stipulation, that includes the requirement from the health inspector, I would assume, correct?
Correct, and it also addresses the external staircase and any questions about the external staircase's compliance.
Great. Any discussion? For me, this, was a empty house for many, many years, and it was non-conforming, obviously, for many years, and this will be nice to bring it back to as close as conforming as possible. I agree with Sean. I think a lot of times it's your comment of it's hard to be putting the onus on neighbors to come to us with issues, but unfortunately that's where we are. So hopefully this application will stick to what they're saying they want to do.
If not, you face the law.
That's right. Any other comment? All right, we'll do roll call. Kevin Clark,
Yes.
Bill Freeman,
Yes.
Philip Johnson,
Yes.
Sean Cosgrove,
Aye.
Frank DeAndrea,
Aye.
Larry Rosillo,
Yes.
and I will also vote yes. Thank you very much. I believe is the remainder of our deliberation. And so once again, I will ask if anyone has been able to review the minutes from the September 7th meeting.
Motion to approve minutes as written.
Yep.
Does anyone want to certify that they reviewed them and that they're
They were substantially correct to my untrained eye.
Thank you very much.
And
I agree.
mine as well.
I agree.
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? All abstained? Motion carries. All right, mandatory referrals from the Board of Selectmen under CGS 8-24. Is there two of these? Are these connected or is there two separate ones?
I believe they are two separate ones.
All right, so the first is to recommend the purchase of a 26.8 acre parcel of land on Podunk Road located on Assessor Maps 83 Lot 8 for the sum of $325,000.
For 28 acres?
We have a letter.
Correct, you have a letter.
I'd
So-
like to bid $330,000.
Yeah, it is for a Balustraci property that is adjacent to the East River Preserve.
I understand that. I'd like to bid $330,000.
No, well, you gotta get in line.
Yeah.
I got a $500,000 for that one.
We do.
Hey, Frank, you could have the Dunkin' Donuts New England Distribution Center there.
Like it.
We do have this letter from our first selectman, Matthew Moe, asking us to review this with specific detail.
Oh, I think that might be this. Oh, it's both. Okay, it's both. Thank you.
Oh, it's also the second. Also, well, yeah, okay. To recommend the first one. Do I hear a motion to approve the first recommendation of their purchase of 26.8 parcels?
I think that's it.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I wish we could buy more 26.8 acre lots for $325,000.
Like it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Second recommendation to recommend the granting. Bring it up.
Conservation easement.
The granting of a conservation easement to the Guilford Land Conservation Trust on town-owned land at Chittenden Park and West River Estuary for a mitigation project in compliance with the Army Corps of Engineers permits NAE 2012
That's
298 blah 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 blah. The conservation
Is it dredging?
that's not what we're seeing on the screen.
We mean it now.
Yeah.
Here.
Recommend the
Right there.
granting of a conservation easement to Guilford Land Conservation Trust on
Right, and
town-owned land at Guilford, Chittenden Park and West.
Oh, okay.
So it's all right here. Then there's a whole ton of numbers and that I'm gonna skip over. And then the conservation easement will occupy specific areas of each parcel and will lie between elevation 4 with
Yes.
an area of approximately 4.8 acres.
What
Parcels-
exactly are we approving there? Does anyone know?
The conservation easement
Okay.
to the Guilford Land Trust. And then somehow it's in compliance with the Army. With a
Well,
minute.
so
We're granting a
It's for a
conservation.
minute. So I guess Guilford Land Trust is doing the mitigation project. Is that correct, Jamie?
no, so my understanding, and this is a project that the town engineer and our environmental planner have been spearheading, but I believe in the past, the town was in non-compliance for perhaps it was the filling of some wetlands. And this is meant to be a sort of marsh restoration project that is being done in conjunction with, I think, both DEEP and the Army Corps. And the requirement for the mitigation aspect is to have a third party kind of be granted the easement. And I don't know if they have responsibility for kind of reporting the performance of the mitigation project, but that's kind of my general understanding is
So-
that.
Are we reducing the recreational area of that park?
That's an excellent question to be directed towards the town engineer.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of would like to have an answer on that before we just categorically sign off on giving
Well,
away.
I
a
do
town
believe
park.
that this, I do
It's
believe
not-
that this before the Parks and Rec, there's a Parks Commission. I do believe that it's gone before them.
So technically it's like we're approving a conservation easement as far as the whole project goes, we don't really have any control over that. I'm sure there is I'm sure there's public comment. There's a place where you can provide public comment.
One would hope.
I hate to think they come to us for an approval without any knowledge or information that, we just say, oh, okay, just go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Do I hear a motion to approve this recommendation from Board of Selectmen?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Just one abstention. Motion carries. All right. Jamie, anything else for us to review?
Yes, so a couple of items. There is a letter associated with a grant for the acquisition of that property, and I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I can share it here. It was given to us by Mr. Kevin McGee. And I believe, Scott, there is a request for your signature. Basically, it is a letter which sort of the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission supports the grant request. Just basically that we support the request for some grant money to, I think, purchase this parcel. And so the letter goes on to explain some of the details. So Mr. McGee is also asking for the Planning and Zoning Commission, in the form of you, Scott, as chairman, to sign this letter to, I believe, the grantor, which is the Connecticut Deep Open Space and Watershed Land Acquisition.
Yeah,
Grant.
this is a pro forma. I mean, it really is something we should just approve.
Yeah, I'll review it. Thanks.
I would be careful in terms of signing stuff to just make sure there are full approvals on stuff. Because I've seen cases where, performance, not in our town, in other towns where there were, requirements for water tanks that were not installed, and just be careful when you sign off as approved as opposed to conditional.
Yeah, this is for the purchase of 26 acres.
Yeah, just shouldn't be a big deal. Just
got it. Thank you.
word of the wise.
Okay.
Great,
Appreciate it.
thank you. Two other items I'd like to discuss. One of them, and I'll start with this one, and then the second one will sort of explain my thinking here. Glenn Chalder, our consultant for the zoning regulations. I have been working with Glenn to bring him back into the fold. I proposed to Glenn that he starting in October, attend the second meeting of the month, the second regularly scheduled meeting of the month, to discuss zoning regulations. So any questions that we have, the ideas around ADUs.
Right. The things that have come up in some of your sessions so far.
Around business districts. There will be a series of housing meetings. The housing committee for the town is formalizing, and they are bringing forward a set of recommendations, which I think they have requested to work with Glenn on. And I think we'll be seeing some potential changes to the regs concerning affordable housing. So there's a couple of things in flux right now, and I wanted to get Glenn's kind of secured time for every second meeting of the month. So Glenn is secured for October 19th. He is also secured for November 16th. He's got a little hang up in December, but we're working on. Secondly, I have made a decision to only entertain public hearings and applications on the first meeting of the month. And I would like for you to consider that. And here is the reason. We are having some difficulty filling our assistant town planner role. We'll have a second set of interviews tomorrow. Thank you, Scott, for participating in that. We will be interviewing 3 candidates. You know, fingers crossed for a great outcome there, but I'm not sure. Secondly, and I say this very regretfully, that this is Lisa's last meeting with us. Lisa's last day will be September 29th. She serves a vital role to our department. And without her, I will struggle to keep up with 2 meetings a month. And I'll also, frankly, full disclosures, struggle to keep up with questions at the counter. You know, as you know, we have a part-time acting zoning enforcement officer who's with us only 2 days a week. So I'd ask you to consider what I'm putting before you, which is that the Planning and Zoning Commission will hear applications and act on applications the first meeting of the month. And then we will discuss zoning regulations without applications the second meeting.
If we had to like deliberate on an item that had been sitting for a while, we could still, correct? Just
We could, yeah. I think where my difficulty will come is, you know, getting all of the material together with the legal notices and, you know, everything like that for 2 meetings a month rather than 1.
Yeah. Well, let us just say, I'll say for myself, thank you, Lisa.
Yeah,
Thanks, Lisa.
for sure.
Good luck. I'm not sure what you're going to do, but I'm sure it'll be swell.
I'm heading to the town of Brantford Land Use Office. So it was a great opportunity. I really can't pass up.
Yeah.
Nope.
Best of
Well,
luck.
Good.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
It'll be a little different.
It will be a little different. I'll miss everybody. I really love the town of Guilford, but Brantford
Say hi-
pays better.
Say hi to Chuck for us.
Chuck? Who's
Andre.
Chuck? Oh, okay, will do.
Chuck, I believe, might be, I know he served, he might be chairman of planning and zoning,
Oh, I'm not working in planning and zoning anymore.
just land use.
I'm going to be working in land use. Yeah. I'm going to be called the customer service coordinator.
There you go.
Huh,
So, yeah.
wow. There you
So
go.
hopefully that's a step up, Lisa.
It's a step somewhere.
It's a step out.
It's the pay bump.
All right.
All right.
So I think on the table though is Jamie's asking
Yeah.
for our feedback on the once a month for at least the interim period until things are
I mean,
back to a more
I hate to hang
steady.
up, I hate to hang up applicants if we have things coming in. But
I've been in towns where it's been once a month and you just deal with it, and you're not accepting this as
Right.
permanent, are you?
No.
I mean, it seems to
So
make
I-
sense in terms of our projected, you know, timeline of trying to get these zoning regulations completed is by early next year. So it makes sense for us to really try to focus on that over the next 4 months or so. So yeah, I would say it makes sense for this to be, you know, a rest of the year type deal. At least on my end.
I agree.
all right, I'm good with it for now.
Yep.
Let's maybe set a more.
Do we need to vote?
Maybe a moratorium on this, like for like.
Yeah,
One?
I'll be checking in with Jamie just in terms of checking in on, you know, the volume that we're seeing for sure. But at the same time, our meetings tend to go along anyway. So here we are.
Yeah, you've lost control, Scott.
Yeah.
The inmates are running the asylum.
Everybody has lots to say. Jamie, anything else do you need an official vote from us? That
You know
is
what,
more
let's
enough.
talk to Chuck. Let's look into the charter.
Sure.
You know, I did approach both the first selectman, you know, as well as just my colleagues in
Right.
the land use departments that I was going to power down, so to speak.
Yep.
And I have met no opposition, but let's not spite ourselves by, you know, not checking with Chuck.
One final note, there is a special meeting, town meeting on Monday, the 26th, for the approval of the purchase of the property that we discussed earlier.
Yep, 8:30 a.m.
8:30 a.m.
This is the proposed site for the Public Works closer to.
No. This is the East River, this is off the East River.
26.8 acres.
Yeah.
Right.
6.8.
The other piece is on Long Hill.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
where you
Jam-
go to make your proposal, Phil, for 350.
Right. There's also the Scrog meeting, Jamie, on
Yes, that's
yeah.
correct. The 28th at 1 p.m. The South Central Regional Council of Governments is holding a series of housing group working sessions to discuss implementation of affordable housing plans. And that information.
If anyone would like me to forward you the schedule of meetings, I'd be happy to.
Yep. And that's apropos, as Jamie mentioned, with the affordable, I don't know what the official term is really, but the Affordable Housing Committee, as it's been, with it formalizing to become more of a commission then, and it's going to become more of a thing in our zoning regs that we're updating. So we should, at least everybody should think about affordable housing a little bit, because we're going to be talking about it.
Good.
Any, Jamie? Or is that if we're,
Motion to adjourn?
do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye, Lisa. Thank you.
Bye.
Hi, Lisa.
Good luck,
Thank you.
Lisa.
Good luck.
Good luck, Lisa. Good luck,
Thank
Lisa.
you.
Track you down in Branford.
Thank you.
Bye.